Hello, 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 and welcome to this special episode of the Sausage Factory, in which we are going to be debating two holiday action movie classics. I'm your moderator, Pizzal. Joining me tonight, I have the dankest man I've ever met, anyone's ever met, the gods have ever created. I'm talking about Jay the Stingray. What's up, Stingray?
Oh, ouch.
What's up, guys?
Just totally over. Oh, Orc, what's up, man? No, Orc, how you doing, man? How's it going, dude? Good to see you.
All right, throwback. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Come on, rolling, 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 rolling. Yeah.
Classic.
Mike is about to kill himself. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to do that.
You need a red Yankees cap for that. I'm gonna let's see if we can find Orc a red Yankees cap, and we'll send it to him for his return.
I'm doing good. You know, I'm memeing. You know, I like your fireplace in the back there.
Thank you.
Looks pretty dank. You know.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just you can only meme once.
Yomo.
But I'm trying to meme twice or three times. So.
A lady.
Yo, Mo.
If anybody can do it, Orc, it's you. If anybody can Yomo more than once, it's you.
Yep. You know, I'm just watching YouTube videos, and then like I read Twitter from time to time when I'm not memeing hardcore, and I just see so many Me Too's and someone else got touched in their vagina, and serious problem. You know, Me Too.
It is.
Hashtag.
It is. It is. Well, how have you been? How's the health? Give us a health update.
Health update, you know. You had 5 memes. I'm probably down to 1, -4.
Okay.
Gonna pull through, though.
Interpret that for us in layman's terms.
Okay, so like you have 5 memes and you take 4 away. This is like a math equation in school.
Okay.
And then you're left with 1 meme. Like I'm probably down to half a meme, especially like my mental status. But you know,
is that a good?
Just kind of meme through it.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know, because when you get desperate with your memes, you know, you start clicking on random links. Then you're on some Russian site and they're taking your bank card, like your bank info and stuff. So then it gets really bad. Fucking subscribe to unashiza.net and you know, like all this weird stuff. So, you know.
Okay. But you're hopeful to make your triumphant return in January, correct?
Yeah, late December or January. Yep, hopefully.
And you've had a PC problem. Your PC is shot, so you've got to invest in a brand new PC, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Maybe we'll do a fundraiser. Maybe we'll do a like a marathon to help raise some funds for the Orc new PC fundraiser.
That sounds like a great idea. I got a list of movies for you: Beverly Hills Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3, Mortal Kombat, Blade 2, Tremors.
No, if we did it, Orc, it would be Grave Encounters, Grave Encounters 2. And I think there is a Grave Encounters 3. I'm not sure though, but I know there's at least 2 of those things.
There's going to be one.
The people who make Grave Encounters, put Orc in the next Grave Encounters movie, for God's sake. Give him a role. Give the kid a role.
They changed my oil yesterday, so yeah, I'll tell him.
Oh God.
Yeah. Throwback Orc Van Dam. Woo!
Well, Orc, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing better. Hopefully the PC situation will resolve itself soon, and we'll have you back full time. It's just not the same without you. We all have to carry an extra. The hole that you leave behind when you're not here, Orc, is immense. And we all have to do double time in order to fill that hole. I mean, that's why Cameron can't handle it. That's why he's out. Eric can't handle it. I mean, the pressure is too great that they're just like, I can't. We're gone. We can't come because they just can't handle the pressure of trying to fill in the gap that the lack of you leaves.
Well, filling holes is my specialty, so no worries there.
Oh yeah. Give me it.
You beat me to it.
Okay. Anyways, I see segments and they're pretty dank, but like you got some wise words of wisdom with Mike. That's pretty cool. But then you got like Cole Scholastic fucking reading Rainbow Corner, and I'm like, what's this? And then Jay's got like coffee taste of the week, and I'm just like,
That's a
I
good
don't
idea.
Don't forget
and kill me.
Don't forget
Two.
Stingray Spotlight, which Stingray Spotlight is emerging as a favorite now. So
Yep. I want okay. Here, suggestion: Rambo's fan of the week, and they can't be the guys from North Carolina. Got him. Got him.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
You're behind on the memes, Cole. Well, I'll get you linked. Don't worry.
well, Orc, why don't you hit us with a dank meme of the week right off the bat?
So, dank meme of the week. I don't know. Like pizza's really good. You should get it with bacon, mushrooms, extra cheese. If you don't, I mean, I don't want to say you're LGBLT, but you're close. That's a dank meme.
That wasn't a meme. That was more of a statement. It was a true statement. I mean, pizza is pretty gozu.
I haven't heard gozu in a long time.
Yeah.
As part of
Did
the
they remove the part of your brain that does gozu? You lose
No,
post surgery.
I've been living the hostile lifestyle. Yeah, I might have done it actually.
Okay.
All right, we're going down a really dark path here. But when he's like, I'm gonna need to check to see if you have any other things going on, any other holes going to your spine. He kind of just you want a woman in that situation. LGBT proud. Why are we here? I don't even know.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just going to assume that you're highly medicated. I'm just going to assume you're highly medicated, and we'll just move right on, Orc. But you hang with us as long as you can. Let me continue the introductions. Also with me tonight is the Professor B Movie Mike. What's up, Mike?
Hey, what's up, guys? We're nearing ever closer to the greatest holiday of the year, and it's really starting to kick in full swing. And I'm really looking forward to this show. Like we mentioned before the show, these two franchises are iconic, and I really can't wait to dig in. So this is going to be a good time.
This will be fun. Yeah. Also with me tonight is Cole. What's up, Cole?
Hey, Merry Holidays. I guess it's never too early.
Never too early. And we say Christmas on this show. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm a fan.
Okay.
Well, I'm willing to work with people on that.
Christmas. I don't know.
Because it was a fucking racist. What about Kwanzaa?
This show is going to save Christmas. Okay.
All right.
This show is going to save Christmas.
You can't do that. Kirk Cameron already did that.
That's true. That's true.
Where would we be without Kirk?
Where would we be without the Kirk Cameron? Yeah. God. Also with me tonight is Jay the Stingray. What's up, Stingray?
God.
Shalom. Happy Hanukkah.
What are we drinking tonight, Stingray?
This is lean.
I figured in that cup. I figured.
Yeah. Pour that purple drink in my white cup.
There you go. There you go. Also with me tonight is Rambo Raff. What's up, Rambo?
Doing good. Fuck Kirk Cameron. Just put that out there. And Merry Christmas, whatever. As long as it makes you happy, fucking go for it. But,
oh, no, we need controversy. Controversy.
As Orc says, yes, there are many fans of the week, so how you doing? If you're watching.
Hey, wait, we got it. I'm the young buck. Here we go. We gotta fucking clean this shit off. Okay, it's got some ice cream on it, but 'tis not the spoon that bends, but it is yourself. Woo.
Is that a
do we get
Matrix
it?
reference?
It's a Matrix reference, yeah, dude.
I thought it was like there is no spoon.
Hey, man, I want some of what you're on.
Yeah, pass us whatever you're on there, Orc.
Past the ditch.
Going from the special director's cut of The Matrix.
It's not the spoons it bends. Choose yourself. Isn't that how it goes?
No, I think you're mixing up your Zen stuff there, Orc.
Whatever you say, Orc. Whatever you say.
Actually, you might be right. They might say that before, like, they end with "There is no spoon," so maybe it's in the lead up.
That was from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right?
You talk about spoons.
Yeah. Because I'll hurt more.
How have you guys been? Have you seen any good movies or any new movies lately? Rambo, I know you saw Justice League recently. Cole, did you ever get out and you and Rahul go see Justice League?
No, my plans keep getting thwarted. And
Okay.
I'm going to lay that entirely at Raio's feet. That's his fault.
Okay.
So
I know how Rambo felt about the movie. Mike, did you happen to see?
No.
Okay. What about you, Stingray? Did you happen to see Justice League?
I did not. The overwhelming people that didn't, dislike the film kind of swayed me against it. And I was already on the fence anyway because I hated, Dawn of Justice so much.
yeah.
I
fully expect to hate it. I just feel like I might as well since I did see Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, some people like it, so if you're interested, go for it.
It seems like it seems like there's a lot of reviews that are like, oh, it's really messy. Oh, it's got a lot of problems, but it's okay. I think that's kind of how I felt about it. I mean, I saw it last night, and it's typical DC. I mean, it's totally disjointed. It's almost like a Gonzo superhero movie, in that there's just like a bunch of scenes thrown together that don't seem to link themselves to each other or really hold any kind of narrative purpose. To just kind of pad out between the big set pieces. You know what I mean?
Did you feel it had a sort of weird tone fluctuating?
Yeah, I did.
Of its tone? Yeah.
It really came off kind of flat to me, really. I mean, there were a couple of, like the kid that played the Flash. I thought he had a couple of funny moments, but it seemed really flat to me, just overall. And I guess that kind of balanced out from it's kind of dark, but then they're kind of trying to make it light, but then it just felt very kind of flat to me.
Was it another victim of rewrites and punch-ups?
Yeah. Like the Joss Whedon stuff that he directed. It's funny because there's a scene in the movie when Batman first meets the Flash, and they're down in like the Flash's little cave or whatever. Mm-hmm. The reshot scene, the reshot part of it is so obvious. Like the look of it didn't match. Like that part just didn't match. And then like the hairstyle on the kid that played the Flash was different. And it was so weird because it was like, okay, here's Snyder, and then like a wedged in Joss Whedon, and then more Snyder. And it felt just like that, and it looked exactly like that. And I'm thinking, why, they didn't, it was so obviously that this part was reshot. And it was odd. And there were a couple of other moments in the movie like that too, where they were just like really sloppily seemed like edited together. And like, I don't know, it was typical it was DC. It was a DC movie. And like, I liked I liked the kid that played the Flash. I liked the guy that played Cyborg. Aquaman came off really flat to me and just kind of like, hey, I'm a big dumb musclehead jock guy. You know what I mean? And
I was ready for him to say, "Bro."
Yeah.
What's up, bro?
Oceanic Conan.
Yeah.
I was hoping he'd speak Dothraki.
That'd been cool. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. It was enjoyable, but at the same time, I could not take my eyes off of Superman's mouth where they CGI'd out the mustache, it looked like his entire face was CGI'd. It looked like
Why did they do that?
It looked like he was just as complete. It looked like he was a completely CGI'd character, like Steppenwolf, because of that with the facial hair. I don't know.
The reason
Henry Cavill couldn't shave or something?
Well, what happened was Henry Cavill is doing a Mission Impossible film, and they had to do reshoots, and he had a mustache. And Paramount, who owns Mission Impossible, told them, you can't shave it. We won't let you shave him. You guys deal with it. If you got to do reshoots, guess what? Tough shit. You don't have to see that shit.
Oh, my God.
We won't let you shave them.
I would think it would be much easier to shave the mustache than put a fake mustache on. Right?
Or like, how slow does this guy's facial hair grow where he can't, like, shave it off and have it grow back in a week,
I know. How behind schedule is this with them?
He has grown a beard in the movies. He had in Man of Steel. I mean, and in the end of Dawn of Justice, they showed dirt going up, so he was supposed to be alive. So why can't he just have a beard that grew out? And he had long hair in the comic.
That's what I figured too.
Why don't they do that?
I didn't know that about the Mission Impossible thing. I figured
that's why
he was dead, but he was still alive. So his hair grew out. But then when they were filming it, they were like, "Oh, wait a minute, Superman doesn't have facial hair." So they went in and CGI'd it. But it made his entire face look CGI to me. It made him look like an entirely CGI'd character.
Well, he looks like a doofus anyway, though. So I mean,
was it like Grand Moff Tarkin bad?
I wouldn't go that far.
I thought Grand Moff Tarkin looked good.
I thought Tarkin looked good too, actually.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher looked bad, but not Tarkin.
It's weird because it kind of makes him look like his top lip is like enormous because it's just so weird how they did it.
He's got like a big hair lip or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like I couldn't stop.
Stupid.
Every time he was on screen, I was just like looking at that, going, "God, that looks weird," I
don't know if I'm the type of person that would have noticed, but now I definitely will.
You will stare at his lip the entire time he's on screen. The entire time.
But it was just so crucial that his character in
Mission Impossible
has a mustache. Like, the whole movie apparently hinges on the fact that this character has a mustache, and an authentic mustache, not some fake job.
Yeah,
that is just crazy.
The
priorities of these.
They just wanted to hurt Warner Brothers. I guess they just wanted to hurt him more as a rival studio.
Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's just weird, man.
It's like right up there, but like when Ashton Kutcher was in movies, and he'd refused to remove his stupid fake religious. Remember, he had like a fake religious bracelet.
Oh,
and he'd refused to remove it.
No, it's that.
I don't know.
That religion, Kabbalah, yeah.
Yeah, just bullshit that he, just a fad, right? But he said it was so important that like they had to like CGI remove it in his movies through like CGI and stuff.
Oh my God!
Because he wouldn't take it off for like any scenes.
First I've heard of that.
But yeah, Justice.
He wasn't relevant very long, but he really milked it while he was there, right? For his like 2-year window as a movie star.
Oh, and what did he do? He did like some movie on a boat.
Did like My Boss's Daughter with Tara Reid. So that's...
Dude, where's my car?
I like Butterfly Effect.
I
like Butterfly
Effect. I forgot about that. I forgot about that movie.
Which one?
That was good. Butterfly Effect. I liked the Butterfly Effect.
Oh no, I didn't like that. I liked the idea. I didn't like that. The main thing I liked about it was because the characters were about my age, so like I could So when they went back in time, it reminded me of being that age at that time. That was the main thing I liked about it. That's another movie that like they made a bunch of stupid sequels to for no reason.
Yeah,
and they're not good either.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not.
But yeah, really, just
that was Amy Smart. That was when she was in movies too. Amy Smart.
That's true. Yep, Amy Smart.
Also no longer in movies. At least not that I'm aware of.
But, I would be interested to hear your thoughts on Justice League, Cole, after you watch.
And the plan was to go see it. I don't know if that's happening now or not.
I think it's funny how you say it's a typical DC movie, which is it means it sucks.
Well, no, not that it sucks. that it's disjointed. It's tonally all over the place. It's very, very messy. It was
typical new DC. I mean, it's pretty different from like say Batman Forever.
Right. Well, I'm talking. Yeah, exactly. you know, the new DC, the DCEU.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
The DC
Studios.
the DCPU. You know what I mean? But yeah. When I say typical DC, I mean disjointed, messy, sloppy. Like, you know, they're
It's shot
clearly
through a lens where everything's super dark looking. There's no color.
kind of, yeah.
But
There were things I liked about it, but in overall, it was enjoyable. But you know, it's DC, it's DCU.
what was so frustrating to me, why I got so mad, is that you could have. It was built on such bad foundations that this is why you get this. And you know, how long were people looking forward to a Justice League movie? And at best, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was, and I didn't even think like the Avengers was awesome. I thought that was okay, but I prefer that over what this was, because this, like you said, it was so, everything's so ass backwards. I mean, what you think would be the longest film is the shortest film. It's like 2 hours, less than 2 hours.
Wow.
And it's a Justice League movie. Like without the end credits, it's like an hour and 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And
It seemed awfully strange.
I don't want to completely shit on DC. Their original films, like the 70s Superman and the 80s Batman, I mean, what was Marvel doing back then? You know, Captain America, Spider-Man, those movies were trash, right? Mm-hmm. And Roger Corman's attempt at the Fantastic Four, that stuff is laughable compared to Superman and Batman of that era. But now we've seemed to have switched places where Marvel is now, you know, making marginally better product. I mean, it has suffered as it's gone along. I think the phase 1, as they call it, was probably the best, starting with Iron Man and ending with the original Avengers. That's probably, in my opinion, the best stretch for Marvel. Hey, one of the directors we're going to talk about tonight, Richard Donner, who directed the original Superman in the 70s. If he's still alive, I say get his ass out of mothballs and have him direct one.
That'd be good.
Because obviously he can, has a better grasp of the material and has a better way of presenting it, because he was heavily involved in Superman 2 before he was fired, because he was shooting them back to back. And, those are the 2 best Superman movies ever made, in my humble opinion. And it'd be kind of cool to bring him back and try and see what he could do with the modern stuff.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
I just didn't understand. I mean, Cameron said it before. Like, it's not like DC even needs to do that sort of stuff. They make good animated movies. I don't understand why they can't make good live-action movies. Maybe they should just use the same directors and writers they use there, as far as I can tell. Because, I mean, obviously there's a big difference between animation and that. But, I mean, the problems with the DC movies aren't, like, live-action problems. They aren't like, oh, the effects are bad, or, oh, the casting is horrible. I mean, the casting's questionable in some places, but, I mean, it's been okay. Like, I mean, the problems are just foundational things, like story issues and pacing and choices like that, which you can do in an animated movie or a live-action movie, and it shouldn't really make any difference. So that's what's really mind-boggling. I mean, when I think of the best Superman movies ever made, well, they're all animated.
You know what I thought was weird, and this may be a little spoilery, but when they are literally in the middle of the night out there digging up Superman's corpse.
I remember that.
Like, I'm watching that and I'm going, this is really kind of odd. And they're like joking around while they're digging up his they're grave robbing Superman in the middle of the night, joking around. I'm going, this is just really morbid and weird. You know what I mean? It was just so odd. It just felt weird.
It was even weird, like they're digging slowly and it's the Flash. And he's like digging like this. I'm like, you're the Flash.
I know.
Like, and he's like digging like
so many
wood.
Problems whenever you have the Flash. Because they could just give him the shovel and be like, there, and he'd be done in half a second.
They're just digging, and he mentions Pet Cemetery 5 times.
Yeah. I did kind
better.
of laugh at the Pet Cemetery reference though. But I don't know. I just thought that was odd. Really
from what I've seen, I don't really like the way they're portraying the Flash, but
I think he was my favorite part of the movie. Really,
wasn't it?
He looks like he's like 15 years younger than everybody else.
He's a kid.
Do they always have, like Spider-Man? Do they have to keep him?
What's with these like big disconnects in their ages? Like most of the characters in Justice League are of similar ages for the most part.
They wanted the Civil War thing. Peter Parker, Tony Stark. That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Stupid.
it's decent. Well, I mean, like you said, it's the Foundation's story
Yeah.
and stuff. They haven't made a lot of sense, and that's why, for me personally, Justice League suffers a lot for other reasons too. But
Because these guys are supposed to come together as almost equals, but there always seems to be an inexperienced, weaker one. Whether it's Spider-Man or in this one, it's the Flash. So
and the Flash, he was clumsy and slipping, and he like tripped over himself, and he wasn't equal at all. He was falling on.
Is he supposed to be Barry Allen?
Yeah.
That's what his
his
name was.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Yeah, because like I mean, I'm not a big Flash person, but I mean, I still know which Flash is which, and Barry Allen's like the main one, the one that most people think of, and he didn't get his powers as a teenager or anything like that. Like he was, you know, he was like working. He was like, what was it? He worked for the police department. He was like a forensic scientist or something when he got his powers. So he wasn't like some 19-year-old or something.
And what's that scene on the rooftop with the bat signal where everybody disappears but him, and he's left there with Commissioner Gordon, looking like a dipshit, like an unequal left behind idiot? You know, that just
Yeah, he says, "Oh, I guess they're gone. That was rude."
Yeah.
And he leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I get the joke, but it doesn't work if it's Flash, because Flash would notice these things. He perceives reality quicker than anybody else around him. You can't really disappear without him noticing. Like, so it's, you know, because I get the joke. It's making fun of Batman's joke, the way he, you know, disappears without anybody seeing him and stuff like that. But having the Flash be the butt of it really doesn't make any sense.
he would be where they go before they get there.
Yeah, he's got hyper awareness.
Well, I mean, they kind of in the movie. I mean, Superman's just as quick as he is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he might be the only one.
Well, they
that
had
could
a race.
possibly be.
The Flash one.
You remember that flashback scene in Dawn of Justice?
Yeah.
Does any of that shit come to fruition in this film?
No.
Awesome.
No mentions of Martha.
It's not even a flashback scene. It's a
Well, yeah, whatever you call that, some time travel type thing.
That'll pay off in Justice League 2.
Oh, great! What is that?
yeah,
2025.
but still, you have to at least bridge it with something. Like to not even like mention it in this one seems awfully strange.
No, not at all.
Remember the scene where the Flash comes from the future to warn Batman about something?
That's-
That's
yeah.
not even referenced.
What they should have, what they should have,
No.
what they should have done with this movie. My favorite part, again, spoilers, is when Superman is resurrected, and he's a bat out of hell. He's like trying to kill everybody. He's pissed. He's like, he doesn't know who he is or what's going on. He's like trying to kill everybody. That should have been the movie. Take Steppenwolf out and have the Justice League trying to,
Stuff Superman.
Yeah.
That sounds like the movie that should have been Batman versus Superman.
well,
Superman comes back and ape shit, and Batman tries to take him out.
Yeah, that should have been, and like the black Superman suit is what they should have had for him in this one, and just have him be like, you know what I mean? Because that was really,
Yeah, here he's shirtless.
yeah. Because I thought that was really cool. I thought because he's just like, you know, I don't know who you are. I'm pissed off. You know, I thought that was cool.
I don't know why they would jump right into Superman movies and then immediately kill him, and then bring him back immediately right after the next movie. Like what?
Bad. They got too scared every single time.
I mean, that's a huge plot point and a huge thing in the Superman mythos. You know, I just don't know why they would.
And you know, they
he
could
was
have
dead for a year's time in the comic.
Yeah, and what they could have done with this one is like what they did with the Reign of Superman comic series, when they have like all these other Supermen or people with kind of super characters trying to become Superman, and the Justice League is, you know,
Right. They could have had Shaq back for a cameo.
Like everybody knows, it's true that when they killed Superman in the comics, it was never to kill him off for good. Obviously, it was to bring him back. But the whole point of it was to explore having the comics without Superman around for a year. That was the point, not the death. It was the comics that came after that, and then the eventual return. And as you said, the Reign of Superman storyline. So if you just cut all that out, like the death has no impact. It's like, oh, he's dead. World has lost his champion. How are we going to go on? Oh, he's back.
The death has no impact here. No impact.
So, well, I mean, it really undermines it. It's like, well, that was pointless then. They might have just had him go away on vacation.
Yeah.
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 Which is what it is in Superman Returns, right? In Superman Returns, most people
Yeah.
want to forget that movie exists, but it's like Superman. It's like, oh, he's back. Where was he? Oh, he was gone. And while he's gone,
Fuck you
Lois
guys,
Lane is
I'm
turned
going
into like the
Yeah, exactly.
like meanest, like most cold-hearted bitch in the world. Man, she's so mean in that movie. She's so mean. But anyway, don't want to go there. We'll be all night talking about that.
And like there's what's kind of is like there's a really good supporting cast in these movies. You know, I like Amy Adams a lot. I like Diane Lane a lot. I like J.K. Simmons a lot, or Simmons, whatever you call it. I like Jeremy Irons a lot. You've got a really great supporting cast in this movie.
Well, I don't like
But-
Jeremy Irons at all.
You don't like Jeremy? You don't like the Irons?
Whoa, buddy. Whoa,
Adam-
now.
Oh, I
Simon
like him,
said-
but I don't like him
God
as
rest his
Alfred.
soul, man.
Simon
Come on,
says you're
don't
crazy.
speak ill of the dead.
What?
But those people are wasted. They do nothing in these movies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I like Jeremy Irons as an actor. Fine. I just hate him as Alfred. It's stupid.
Ah,
Diane Weiss is just there to get her farm taken, and Bruce Wayne's such an ass, so he's like, "Oh, when Superman's alive, oh, now I'll help you."
Yeah, that
Even though the
was
whole
funny.
film is like, the whole film, last one was Martha, and he saved her, but and then the beginning of this one, oh yeah, her farm is taken away. I guess Bruce Wayne's not keeping tabs on that shit.
Yeah.
Even though Martha, her name's Martha, you should be fucking have a hard on for her.
Yeah, and you would think as important as that link was between Superman and Batman, after Superman died, you figured that he would take on, taking care of his mother in place of the one,
No.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Only until Superman's alive. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I bought the bank.
Flash comes from the future to tell you need to form the Justice League, but it has nothing to do with this movie. Martha! I don't give a shit about her.
Wow.
wait, why did you say Martha?
Great writing.
It's,
Great writing.
Again, like I said, I mean, it's like DCU, man. You just kind of shake your head and go, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? And even like the stuff that Whedon done, I mean, I couldn't, aside from it looking like obviously like a reshoot, I mean, it didn't even seem Whedon-y to me. Like, I mean, it, they threw in like some kind of pithy stuff, but I mean, I don't know. I still more or less enjoyed it. I watched it in a completely empty theater. And I like the idea of Steppenwolf as the villain, but I mean, he's kind of just super one-dimensional, and there's not a lot to him, and he's just a villain wedged in because they needed a villain to I guess they were somewhat smart to use him instead of just throwing Darkseid at us right off the bat, kind of like what they did with Apocalypse and Dawn of Justice. But
Doomsday.
Doomsday, yes, you're right. Yeah, Doomsday.
That wasn't Doomsday. That was bullshit.
It was just some big gray thing.
That was like the Kraken or some shit.
Is Eisenberg in this?
After the end credits, like one scene.
Yeah,
That's still
It's
too
like-
much.
It's like him and Deathstroke are going to build up the Injustice League or something.
I'm done. I'm done with it.
they're starting their own league now.
The Legion of Doom. Yes.
Or whatever, yeah. I thought they said Injustice.
See, once
but-
upon a time, I would have been super excited for a Deathstroke movie, but now, no.
He looked cool. He looked cool.
I don't even know who they cast as him.
I didn't really recognize him, so I don't know.
Is it Joe Manganiello or I forget the actor's name?
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Anyway, Deathstroke's an awesome character, but I have no faith that they'll do him well.
Well, have you guys seen any other movies this past week? Anything worth noting aside from the Die Hard or Lethal Weapon series?
I saw Coco last night.
Coco, how was it?
I went into it like not expecting very much, but it's some of the best animation I've ever seen. It's really impressive.
Cool. Any have you guys started your holiday horror movie watching?
No.
No,
No?
not yet.
No.
I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 for the first time.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, speaking of-
That's the Bill Moseley with the cereal bowl on his head.
Psychic lady.
Speaking of Silent Night, Deadly Night, I had a late pre-order for the Blu-ray, the original film that just came out, and instead of getting a copy, I got a notice that it was on back order. So I canceled my order and said, "Screw it."
I had it. I pre-ordered from Shout Factory, and I got this with the Blu-ray, that whole set, which is really cool. I actually watched it today. I watched the movie, then I watched it over again with the commentary. It looks great. The extras are great. It's, I'm going to do a full review probably tomorrow. But they had it for sale on Amazon for $17.99. So I pre-ordered it to do like a giveaway. Since it was, $17, I was like, crap, that's a good price. So, and the same thing happened where they said it was shipped. It was going to be delivered on the 5th. And then I got an email saying that it had been delayed with no
future release date.
Yep, no explanation, no nothing. And so I called customer service, and they were like, "Yep, it's been delayed. I don't know why it's been delayed, and I can't tell you when it's going to be. When we'll have it back." They go, "It's been delayed. I can't tell you why it's been delayed. Now it's on back order, and I can't tell you when it will be available or when you will receive it now." And I'm like, "Well, why did I pre-order it from you then? I could have just went out and bought it today and had it right now." I kid you not. They connected me to a supervisor. The supervisor hung up on me. I'm not kidding. I called back. I talked to a customer service rep and explained, like, "Hey, I'm a little upset here. A supervisor hung up on me." He hung up on me. This is Amazon.com.
Wow.
This is
Amazon. We're not very well trained.
I'm glad I canceled my order.
And now I've never had an issue with Amazon.com. Their customer service has always been phenomenal. Finally, I called a third time around, and I was like, I'm really upset this happened, and what I mean, blah, blah, blah. So, finally I spoke to a good supervisor, and she was like, she refunded me the money from it and apologized and was like, "Oh, we'll find out who that supervisor was and who that rep was, and we'll train them, blah, 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 blah." But I was just like, no, but I was like, look, I don't know what's changed with Amazon customer service, but I've never had an experience like this. And, this is just completely unacceptable. So I don't know. I never had that experience with Amazon.com. Never.
You're a Prime member, right?
Yeah, I'm a Prime member.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they always, I got to tell you, in the past, when you give them your information and they go, "Oh, thank you for being a Prime member," they bend over backwards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This time around, it was like, "Thank you for being a Prime member. Let me put you on hold for 20 minutes and hang up on you." I call back and they go, "Oh, thank you for being a Prime member. Oh, you've got a problem? Hold on, hang up." That was literally it. I was like, "You got to be freaking kidding me, man." So I don't know what's up with Amazon customer. Of course, it's all outsourced, and occasionally you get that rep who, English is not their first, second, third, fourth, or fifth language, and it's very difficult to understand what they're saying. And I think that barrier is an issue as well, and may expedite the hang up process. But I don't know, man. It's changed for the worse, whatever they've done there at Amazon.
This is the worst experience I've had since I became a Prime member. Before that, it was kind of hit and miss when your stuff was going to show up. It could be 5 days, it could be 2 weeks. It just seemed like it was, once they instituted Prime, they kind of punished you for not having it.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I got it, everything was fine. This is the first time I've ever had a problem, and I didn't even bother calling them. I just canceled it because I figured, I'm not gonna bother. I just get somewhere else.
And how does the item go out of stock before you even have it on stock?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I was sitting there waiting. I was like, okay, so maybe I won't get it on the 5th because I pre-ordered kind of late. After the price went down to $17.99, I put in the pre-order. Maybe that had something to do with it. Checked my email, went to Amazon, back order. I was like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, I was a little bit pissed, but I've got the 1 and 2 on the DVD disc, so I'll just use that one if I don't get a copy before the show next week.
Okay. But next week, Silent Night, Deadly Night, live commentary. So that'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully Raph joins us, or we're going to have a very lopsided debate here.
He's
didn't
coming back.
realize.
Now, the Blu-ray is, I mean, it's really nice. So
You've got your figure there also. Is he under the tree? It looks like he's kind of under the tree, waiting to be opened.
waiting to punish the naughty. Well, why don't we go ahead and dive into the topic at hand tonight? And we're going to be debating Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon. Without question, two of the biggest action movie franchises, period. And we want you guys to help us. You guys will make the final vote. And as the debate goes on, I want you guys to tell us who's winning the debate, who is winning the debate, which side is winning the debate, let me say. And share with us what your personal favorite series is and which movie in the series is your personal favorite. Let me give a shout out to some people watching tonight. Movie Man 95, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for tuning in. Stone Gaspin, Joe Perdue, DJ. Let's see who else we got here. And Stone, you've never seen Silent Night, Deadly Night? Oh, man. Anthony Anderson, how are you doing? CJM753BC is with us tonight as well.
Did you say Anthony Anderson?
Anthony Anderson.
I loved you in Kangaroo Jack, man.
Scary Movie 3 was great.
We've got someone by the name of World Class Bullshitters. Love that username.
It's new to me.
So yeah, got a lively chat going on tonight. Orc's about to get banned from the chat.
I'm on it.
But let me introduce the teams for tonight. On the Lethal Weapon side of the coin, we've got B Movie Mike and Rambo Raph.
Lethal Weapon. Awesome.
On the Die Hard side of the coin, we have got Cole and Jay the Stingray. And I will be acting as moderator. I see that Orc has been given a 300-second timeout by our moderator in the chat. Thank you.
Settle down, Orc.
Take this 300-second break and cool down.
He's just going to go drink more pop.
Exactly.
Excellent opportunity to get more sugar in my system.
And we are going to be debating the film series, the Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon, on several different criteria here, but it should be interesting. Why don't we do an opening statement by both teams stating why their series is the better series? And I will start with the Lethal Weapon team of B Movie Mike and Rambo Raph.
Go ahead, Rambo.
Well, okay, Lethal Weapon, while there have been buddy movies before, like 48 Hours, Running with Billy Crystal, Lethal Weapon itself was the movie that really jump-started the buddy cop team genre that you would see for years down the road, whether it be Tango and Cash, whether it be Bad Boys, whether it be all sorts of other buddy cop movies. To this day, they're still making buddy cop movies. And the series is one of those interesting series that a lot of times in series you have people disappear, they die off, they lose characters. It's one of the series I can think of that always adds characters, whether it be Joe Pesci in the second one, Rene Russo in the third one, and yet Chris Rock in the fourth one. And it really builds this sort of family aspect. And it's also interesting to compare and contrast where the first one is very serious, because there's humor in it, And it's really interesting how you see the Martin Riggs character really change because of family, where one of the first moments in the first movie is being suicidal and ready to put a bullet in his mouth. And then if you watch all 4 movies, he actually has this big family. It ends in this big family picture. There's not many movie series that do that. Usually they either stand alone or they, again, they lose family members or family members die out because they couldn't get the actors back and so forth. And also one of the few where every single one was directed by the same director, which is Richard Donner. So, and then actors actually wanted to come back. They didn't hold out for more money. They didn't do any of that. Very rare thing to do. And the first Lethal Weapon, I think, really helps with the great chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. And with memorable lines of dog like, I'm getting too old for this shit. And some fun villains, whether it be Gary Busey. And it could be dark at times, but it's also very funny at times. And we have Tom Atkins, so that's a good.
That's always a plus.
That's a good
Atkins
secret.
right there. We
That's
win.
a good secret weapon.
End of show. Thanks for coming.
And well done by Shane Black, who wrote the first one. And it's just a very solid, entertaining movie that you watch at Christmas time. And when people think of buddy cop movies, Lethal Weapon is one of the first ones they think of. It really helped strengthen sort of a genre of the action, a subgenre of the action films. It has capable action as well as, again, utilizing a dark story, but at the same time, it's hard to balance those tones, but I thought, especially the first one, which is my favorite of the series, it did it very well. It could be very much varying between, the first scene, you see a woman fall off the fucking building, but yet it could be sincerely funny and humorous at times, but it doesn't go over the top in that era, too. So, when people think of buddy cop movies or action films, Lethal Weapon is up there. So I don't know, maybe Mike has something.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
Well, I was a huge fan of Mel Gibson because of the Mad Max films. So I was naturally drawn to Lethal Weapon just because he was in it. And like Rambo said, the first one is my favorite too. Having a John Rambo-esque Vietnam vet on the edge whose wife died and he's suicidal. And he gets paired with Murtaugh, who's just celebrating his 50th birthday and he's thinking about retirement. And here he's saddled with this psycho cop. And how the dynamic between the two all the way through is great. And it did cement the buddy cop film. There were a couple before it, but I think that was the one that really kind of drove it home and made it more of a genre of its own. The Christmas tree lot scene at the beginning, it just kind of sets you up for what the film's going to be like. As far as Riggs' character and the fact that you don't know what he's going to do and the fact that he's capable of doing anything, there's a sense of excitement there. And there is humor, but the first film is rather dark. The second film was going to be even more dark. Shane Black's original script was turned down because Riggs died at the end. And it was a lot darker, and Murtaugh's family was in more danger, and they decided they wanted to punch it up with some comedy to, kind of alleviate some of the darkness because it was too violent. And he mentioned the family was played by the same actors in all 4 films. So there was a sense of family there. You had the same characters, plus they did introduce new characters that were brought into the fold of the family. So instead of just having outside characters, everybody kind of came in like one big family. And by 4, they were all working together. So the progression of Riggs' character makes sense. He's a outsider, lost his wife, Vietnam flashbacks, not having a good time. And meets Murtaugh, and then kind of is brought into the family. And by the end of the movie, he's given reasons to live. And I like that character arc. And music by Eric Clapton, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great score. You got the Atkins. Like I said, we win hands down. It's over. And Danny Glover is Murtaugh. I thought he He was kind of the straight man, but he gave a great performance as the grizzled cop that's just looking to get out and get the pension and spend time with his family and chill. And he's got to deal with this psycho cop. So the dynamic between the two really worked, and Gary Busey was a great villain. It was good stuff.
Our film has we got Danny Glover and Gary Busey, who are both in Predator 2, and we all know Predator 2 is awesome. So once again, we win.
Well, yeah, well, you know, Mel Gibson turned down the role of John McClane to be Martin Riggs. Enough said, right? But these two movies, though, these two franchises share so much in common.
I'd like to see the source material on that information.
Yeah.
Well, supposedly, though, you know, in return, Bruce Willis turned down the Martin Riggs role. So I think they were both born to play those roles. I don't see Bruce Willis as Martin Riggs, and I really don't see, you know, I see Mel Gibson maybe as John McClane a little more, but I think it was perfect the way it worked out perfectly the way it was supposed to. But as shared producers, Joel Silver, there was a lot of similarities as far as the reporter in Die Hard was the police psychiatrist in Lethal Weapon, the female.
They both have El Leon.
Yeah, she was the blonde-haired reporter in Die Hard. Was the one was always after Riggs to go for a psych eval, and she was always trying to talk him out of being crazy, which was some pretty funny stuff as he was avoiding her. Like I mentioned before the show, the gun that Riggs uses in 2, 3, and 4 is the same gun that McClane uses in 1, 2, and 3.
That's the 9mm Beretta, right?
Yeah, it's the same prop, it's the same gun, and there's these franchises are basically, it comes down to directors. Donner and Tiernan. Donner was Superman. I mean, he's made a lot of really good films, and I think he really had a handle on the source material for Lethal Weapon and guided the series rather well.
Okay. Nice opening statement from the Lethal Weapon group. Next up, Team Die Hard. Tell us why Die Hard is the better of these series. Go ahead. Cole,
age before beauty. Yeah.
Sure.
He seems so enthusiastic about it. Oh, I got a good feeling about this today.
Well, I just want to say that, I mean, Bruce Willis never denied that the Holocaust existed, so I just feel like, you know, we win. I don't care if Tom Atkins had a mustache or not. You know.
I still say Tom Atkins is not a plus; it's a minus.
These films were made prior to any meltdowns, so therefore the meltdowns that occurred afterward do not have effect on the product we're talking about.
Well, Bruce Willis is a kid.
But hey, considering we now know that Mel Gibson is fucking crazy, I mean,
what an actor! Yeah,
he nailed Riggs because Riggs is fucking crazy. So it's like, oh, that's why he was so convincing. Okay,
it just showed up. Yeah.
Well, by the
whoa, don't jump! Seriously, dude, don't jump.
Well, he was an alcoholic, and by the time the second movie came around, Donner said that he was drinking like 5 pints of beer for breakfast, but he was always professional. Wow. So the meltdown had begun; it just hadn't happened yet.
Bruce Willis has never been a dick. He's never acted
he has a reputation for being the nicest dude on set. Totally cool.
Just ask Kevin Smith.
Ask Kevin Smith.
Every director.
I really give a shit what he has to say about anything.
Well, go ahead.
Come on now, he's in one of the Die Hards.
Go ahead.
Give him some credit.
Very bad one.
Team Die Hard. Team Die Hard. Come on.
Okay, I'll try to pick up the ball here. As our esteemed opponents pointed out, one of the strengths of Lethal Weapon, of course, is that you have the dichotomy and you have the buddy cop relationship there. You have got two characters that thrive off each other, and as the series went, they added more characters, forming a sort of family and stuff, and it all works out really well. Whereas Die Hard remains true to its roots, which was simply one man, John McClane. And luckily it is John McClane because he's strong enough to stand on his own. Everyone else is there, but it's the John McClane show. And luckily he's such an awesome character that he manages to hold it all together throughout the series, except for maybe the very last one where they felt like, you know, we need to pass the torch. And we'll get into that, right? But that's, you know, we're not going to talk too much about that one because it certainly doesn't help my side of the debate. But we will say in the glory days, John McClane didn't need a partner to riff off of or any other supporting cast. They all just had to get out of his way and let him be John McClane. And just to all the other points, it's true. Lethal Weapon was very much maybe not the template for buddy cop movies. It was sort of the most successful and kind of set the mold going forward. It's interesting to note that Die Hard kind of created its own little subgenre within the burgeoning action genre that exploded in the 80s, and that's sort of the one-man army thing that, yeah, it's true that Sylvester Stallone had sort of done in movies, but that was more like a kind of like wrecking machine type guy, at least in the sequels. I admit he's a much more human and normal character in First Blood, but what we've got here is a very popular trope that we played over and over again, which is sort of like an everyman against the world. And we've got John McClane. He's a cop, but he's not supposed to be any sort of super cop. He's not the kind of guy that all those cliches come in with the movies where, he's the chief is yelling at him going, "Oh, McClane, you're wrecking up the place with your $1 million car chases, smashing Lamborghinis," and anything like that. No, he's just an ordinary cop that has never had anything extraordinary happen to him until the very first events of the first Die Hard, and we get to see sort of his blue-collar, everyman take on a crazy, dangerous situation, and of course, being the super awesome guy that he is, he handles it with style, grace, and aplomb, John McClane. So, and of course, as I said, that would sort of set its own template going forward. Just so many other movies would imitate that exact sort of scenario, whether it's a thing like Under Siege, which people would say Die Hard on a boat. There's Die Hard on a plane with Harrison Ford and
Passenger 57 too. Is Die Hard on a plane? Is
another Die Hard on the plane. We've got Die Hard at the Stanley Cup final in Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and so on. And there's plenty of like lesser known movies too that would follow this. So a very, very popular template going forward.
I just want to say that Reginald Vell Johnson, okay, is in 2 movies. 1 and 2, we win.
Also good.
2?
It's interesting, and plus the other Lethal Weapon has like sort of like the distinction. It's kind of a sexy pick because it was written by Shane Black back when he was like really firing on all cylinders. Whereas Die Hard had such a sort of a weird genesis. I mean, it comes from a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever from 1979. It was written to be a sequel to a Frank Sinatra film from like the 60s. And the whole point of this was to get Frank Sinatra back on the screen, because I can't remember what the hell he was doing in the 80s. And he was going to be the main character in this and he turned it down, and it went through various different people, including Schwarzenegger and Stallone. I didn't hear about Gibson, but perhaps that's possible before getting before Bruce Willis getting it. And it is quite different from the novel in a lot of ways, but I don't know. I always feel like it's a point in its favor because it just takes something that's just kind of like a weird thing, really. It's like this novel about this guy who's like a World War II vet and stuff, and he's fighting against specifically German terrorists, and he's less of like the everyman that John McClane is, and he's not making any wisecracks and stuff like that. And he actually is sort of taking kind of like have a certain amount of grim satisfaction in killing people off. And they really change it and adapt it in a much more approachable and interesting style. And just like with Lethal Weapon, this is a holiday movie. This takes place, sometime around Christmas. And Christmas is pretty prevalent throughout. You never forget about it, even though one of the points is he's the New York cop and he's out of his element here. He is in L.A. Of course, there's no snow or anything like that, and it seems odd, but they've still got like the decorations up and everything like that. But I don't want to say too much just for the opening, but the crux of the argument is simply that John McClane is so strong on his own that he doesn't need any sort of surrogate family around him. In fact, his main strength as a character, besides of course just murdering his enemies, is completely alienating everybody else that's around him, whether it's any other sort of cops that he works with or his own fucking wife, who he saves twice and she still decides to divorce him. There are no happy endings for John McClane outside of what he does, which I think actually it makes the movies a little more fun and satisfying in a way, and that John McClane is super successful when it comes to taking on heavily armed terrorists and groups, but as far as getting his own personal life together, he's a complete mess and wreck, and he can't do it at all. And as those movies go, it just shows like his life has sort of gotten worse and worse, which I think is actually kind of funny, and I think makes it sort of stand on its own. And again, is a type of trope that even reminds you of like really old stuff like film noir, when you have like those gumshoe detectives that, you know, they're hard drinking and hard living and all they have is the job and stuff. Well, he's sort of like an updated version of that for like the modern world, the 80s and 90s. And I just think it's just made a very compelling and interesting character. So, as we said, he turns out he's good at one thing, but he's not good at any of the other things that would really bring him any extra sort of satisfaction or joy. And I think that makes him a really compelling and interesting character and really fun to watch on the screen. So, yeah, just to close the opening remarks, I will simply say that John McClane stands on his own. He doesn't need a partner to make quips with. He'll just make quips by himself because he's crazy. Like when he's going through the air vent and he's talking to himself and stuff like that. But he does have characters he can play off of, but none of them will ever overshadow him. They come and they go, whether he's talking to Argyle or he's talking to Family Matters cop or whomever. He just adapts, and it's the John McClane show all the time, until they would drop the ball much later down the road. But again, for the sake of our argument, we'll just say that there was something that happened in Russia that they're calling Die Hard. Let's say that's not Die Hard. No, I can't suppress facts. That is Die Hard, but I don't think we'll be using it very much in the debate.
I own Die Hard 5.
We're not.
As you can see, I picked it up on a Black Friday special, and it's still in the plastic.
Screener copy.
Okay, piece of shit.
Oh,
Okay.
and one last general point is it was funny that like Lethal Weapon seemed to start this whole trend of having like really cool, sort of badass, like tough sounding names that you would hear for some of these movies. Like some of the early Seagal ones had stuff like that too. I think had sort of like tough sounding titles, and I mean that was around in the 80s. But I like how Lethal Weapon was just one more, and like I think Die Hard is the penultimate. It's die, which is a very strong word. And then they just had hard to it anyway, as if there was an even harder way. Like death is very final and extreme, but it's Die Hard, and of course the sequel has to, and the sequels get quite funny, and you get Die Hard, Die Harder, Die Hard with a Vengeance, which sounds more like something that was like originally Chinese and then got translated or something. But no, that actually is what they went with, and I like it. But they just own it and they go with it. And I have to say, even if the other movies aren't as good, the titles are still pretty good. You've got Live Free or Die Hard, A Good Day to Die Hard. I mean, it works. We can still have some good sequel titles, if not actually good sequels.
That's where all the creativity goes into the title for the sequels. Not
the titles Die Hard, Die Hard, or whatever. They're still better than the Russian equivalent because the films were known as a tough nut to crack in Russia.
Nice.
So definitely Die Hard is much better than that. It blows my mind when I see what they rename films for foreign markets. It's just like, what? A tough nut to crack? Really?
What's the fifth one called?
That's what you went with? You don't have the words die and hard in the Russian language? I would imagine you would.
We do, but it's a porno.
Some things just really well. Some people just don't use, some languages they just don't use words and combinations and stuff. So
Well,
I sort of get it, but it's most funny is listening to like Chinese ones because they're always like super long things. Like Face Off in China was called "Whose Face is Belonging to You? I Kill You Again Harder." That's what it's called.
That's awesome.
I like that actually.
I had a couple of rebuttals to some points that they brought up. One, Reginald Vell Johnson, Sam Jackson, boom, out of the picture. Sam Jackson did more in one film than Reginald Vell Johnson did.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a.
And on a cool factor, the Family Matters cop can just go home with Urkel and have a good time while Sam Jackson's kicking fucking ass. All right, excellent character. Yeah, John McClane's by himself because he's a fucking asshole. I mean, how else could you save somebody's life twice and they still fucking hate you?
I'm just saying that's something that makes him cool.
That's why he was by himself, because nobody wanted to be around him. He was an asshole. Now, Riggs, though, he's a Vietnam vet with obvious flashback problems. His wife is murdered. He's on the edge. The job is the only thing he has, and he does the job. And he's good at his job because he doesn't give a shit if he dies or not. So he puts himself in situations that nobody else would and gets the job done. And through his relationship with Murtaugh and the family, he realizes that there's something to live for. There's a story arc there. He's not an asshole. He's just a damaged personality.
Okay. Let's dive.
If anybody here is watching really thinks that John McClane is an asshole you can't root for, I mean, come on. If there was ever an asshole you can root for, it's John McClane.
I didn't say you couldn't root for him. I said that's why he's by himself all the time.
Well, let's dive into some topics here. But Jack Craven in the chat brings up an interesting tidbit. He asked, "Did you guys know that Die Hard was the original title of Shane Black's script for The Last Boy Scout?" Joel Silver liked the title, so he asked Shane if he can use it. So, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and let's dive into some criteria here for us to debate when it comes to these two films.
Sure.
But let's particularly talk about just the first movies, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, and then we've got a whole category coming up where we talk about just the quality of the sequels and so on. So just for the sake of argument here, let's just narrow it down to the very first film in both series, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. Now, they both take place around the holidays. And they've both been called holiday action movies. I know a lot of people watch these movies around the holiday season. You have holiday horror movies, you have holiday comedies, you have holiday family movies. These are the holiday action movies. So, which movie has the better holiday feel?
Well, I had a debate with somebody about this yesterday. They don't consider either film to be Christmas movies.
Okay.
I do. Their argument was that, it wasn't about Christmas. And I gave them that. I said, okay, these movies, a Christmas movie is a movie that's written about the holiday specifically. These films are not that. But they take place at Christmas time. Even in Die Hard, the whole reason John McClane's in L.A. is to visit his family for Christmas. Christmas dinner at the Murtaughs. They have the Christmas tree. It's prominently displayed. So for me, they are holiday films because they take place during the holidays and they have holiday themes, even though they're not directly written about the holiday. So but he cited Home Alone as what he thinks is a Christmas movie. And then I pointed out, well, technically it's just a backdrop for the story of parents that accidentally leave their kid behind. That's the true focus of the film, not Christmas. That's just why they left, which is the same reason why John McClane is in L.A. He's there for Christmas. So if Home Alone is a Christmas movie, then so is Die Hard.
Okay. Maybe that should have been the criteria. Are they holiday movies? Are they Christmas movies? Let you guys in the chat. Do you think Die Hard and Lethal Weapon are Christmas movies or holiday movies? Let us know. But just for the sake of the argument tonight, which one of those movies, which has the better holiday feel, Die Hard or Lethal Weapon? And why don't we start with the Die Hard team of Cole and Jay the Stingray?
Okay, well, it's definitely Die Hard. Actually, this is absolutely true. I'll often watch Lethal Weapon and usually forget that Christmas is happening at all until it's towards the end and he's fighting against Gary Busey, and you can see like Christmas lights and stuff like that. But I mean, one thing about Lethal Weapon versus Die Hard is that Lethal Weapon takes place over a course of several days in the Christmas season, and it has more chance to be Christmassy, and it's not. Whereas Die Hard is just in one location, but luckily it's a Christmas party. So you never forget that. It has that atmosphere. So anytime it cuts back to the hostages and stuff, there's Christmas ornaments and stuff like that. Not to mention you get a great opening with once he lands and driving with Argyle, and you get some Run DMC playing Christmas in Hollis. And I know that there's at least a couple Christmas carols going on in Lethal Weapon. I'm pretty sure Lethal Weapon, the end credits is like something like Let It Snow or something, isn't it? Or
Die Hard is Let It Snow.
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon is Honeymoon Sweet Song. Lethal Weapon.
Ah, wow. I think Die Hard, it just has much more Christmas feel. It's just a presence throughout. I mean, Nakatomi Plaza is all decked out. The halls are decked, if you want to use that pun. And again, it's a Christmas. It is a Christmas party. It's the whole reason there. And plus, you have both movies take place in L.A., which doesn't look too Christmassy because it's not like a wintry place and stuff. But it's in the case of John McClane, a guy who's from New York, you get his sense how he feels like it's sort of weird being in a place like L.A. for Christmas, whereas the other characters are from are from the same place and don't really comment on it or anything like that. But I'm trying to remember what if there's any other Christmassy elements going on in the film. Jay, can you recall any others?
I mean, it's a Christmas party, isn't it? Isn't that what was going on?
Yeah, it's the Christmas party. Like I said, every time it cut, like, so you have scenes from the party, and then once the plot gets going and the terrorists take over, every time it cuts back to it, there's, you know, Christmas decorations all over the place and stuff. So you never really forget about it.
Well, yeah, I'm like you. I didn't really even realize that Lethal Weapon. I mean, you know, I mean, is Gremlins a Christmas movie? I mean, because I mean, it's really hard to. I mean, just because it takes place at Christmas.
At least Gremlins has some snow and stuff. But I mean, I will give Lethal Weapon that it's got a Christmas tree lot, you know, scene. There's a scene where they're, you know, selling Christmas trees and stuff like that. But still, I still think, as far as the comparison goes, the holiday feel is just much more prevalent throughout Die Hard, and maybe the fact that it is only one night in one location actually strengthens this, because it's just always there in the background. Whereas in Lethal Weapon, it's still following kind of a police procedural type of film thing, because you've got like scenes where they're working on the case and then scenes where they're here and there, and you know, it's easy to like for the tone to change and the atmosphere to change. Whereas Die Hard, it's one night, one location, everything's there, and anytime you might forget about Christmas, it'll cut back to the hostages and stuff, and you see all that. Plus, he makes some remarks about Christmas, and really that's like the whole reason he's going, was because it was Christmas and and she was feeling more charitable and decided to invite him out or something like that. So,
okay. Lethal Weapon team.
Well, you know, it's Christmas in the first second because the opening song is Jingle Bell Rock. Jingle Bell Rock. I mean, that's the first second. So
okay, I had it backwards.
Right after
end credits, it's the opening. Okay.
But yeah, so by second one, we know it's Christmas. And the first action scene is in a Christmas tree lot. And when Martin Riggs goes crazy. And then the finale is outside of a family's house that was celebrating Christmas and Christmas lights and such. And I talked before, B-Movie Mike, if you want to add some before I say anything more.
No, go ahead.
And really, Martin Riggs and Murtaugh, the two main characters, by the end, they're inviting him for Christmas. And that team up creates the whole series. Without Christmas, there'd be no Riggs and Murtaugh, one of the best teams of the time. So we win because Christmas is depressing, and Lethal Weapon shows Christmas depressing, so we're more realistic about Christmas.
Well, I was actually
both Lethal Weapon
and
Gremlins like to point out that like the holidays, or like more people commit suicide during the holidays.
That's what I was gonna add on the Lethal Weapon side. That, you know, Gibson's character being so suicidal.
It's Christmas time, and he's ready to get
because it's the holiday. Exactly, because it's the holiday.
The most crucial plot point.
He's staring at the photo of his wife, you know, he's banging it against his head. He's like, "I miss you," and he's crying, and he has that special bullet that he's been saving, and he keeps, you know, he's going to kill himself one of these days. Then there's a scene where somebody drives a car into Murtaugh's house, and it's his Christmas tree.
Yeah. So technically, this can only take place at Christmas because that'd be the only time to be suicidal. Die Hard could take place at New Year's. It'd be the same movie.
It could be any
New Year's party. It could be a birthday party. It'd be the same movie. It could be a party for Independence Day, or hey, 4th of July party.
That's an interesting.
They were going to give her a Rolex. It could have been a promotion party.
There's no mistletoes.
No, I don't know.
Generally, do a lot of New Year's parties. Is that a thing that happens?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Well,
I mean, how many holidays do Hobsons really celebrate? Like,
I would say it's equal. I think Christmas is in the background and prominently displayed in both films, so I would call it equal.
Okay.
Well, they're both chock full of Christmas music. So.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys.
Something I forgot to mention is, like, Empire magazine is the most prestigious film that came out of Britain, and in 2015. It voted Die Hard, above all others, as the greatest Christmas movie of all time. So take that as a Wonderful Life. Die Hard, #1.
I mean, the live chat decided like 20 minutes ago that Die Hard won, so we've already concluded this.
Well, let me ask you guys this, and let me ask everybody in the chat this too. Does a movie have to be about Christmas to be a Christmas movie, or can the backdrop of the movie just be can a movie just be set during Christmas and be considered a Christmas movie, or does it have to be about Christmas to be considered a Christmas movie?
That was my argument.
Just depends upon how much it goes into the plot.
I mean, for people arguing for Die Hard, you know, I could give some concession because there is a scene where Theo's trying to break through that fourth lock, and he's like, I'm going to need a miracle to get through this. And Gruber says, it's Christmas. It's a time of miracles. You know, so that is mentioned, but for me, it's still pretty equal with the Christmas tree lot and the music and the trappings and the surroundings, the dinner. I mean, it's equal to me.
The part where John McClane talks about the birth of Jesus.
I missed that part.
Probably the part that did it for me.
Is that the extended cut?
Yeah. It's a record.
Well, I bet that would have been in there if Mel Gibson had played McClane.
Yeah. That would have been, yeah. But I tell you, part of the reason why people are leaning toward Die Hard in the chat is because Orc is in the chat, and he's just all about, you know, he's like that juror in 12 Angry Men who's trying to persuade everybody to, you know.
I'd like to point out that Orc just has a bias. It's not because he's trying to help Jay and I. So don't think that we have something to do with this, or that we're underhanded, or we sent out Orc to do this for us. Orc's just being Orc.
It seems like he's instigating violence too. I'll just say that.
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, good points on both sides there. Let's move on to what is a very, very. You mentioned Gruber momentarily there just a moment ago. I know the Lethal Weapon side mentioned Gary Busey in their opening statements. The villains in these movies. There's such a movie like this has to have a very strong villain. So let's talk about which film had the best villain.
They did share a villain. The one stunt guy that's in pretty much all the 80s movies, especially John Carpenter films. The Asian.
Yes, that's true.
The candy bar in Die Hard. He's also the one that tortures Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon.
That's true.
That's right. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah.
So there's an equal right there. And then you got Joshua versus what was the big blonde guy's name?
Oh, I forget his name.
But see, Joshua's a trained merc. So you're dealing with mercenaries running heroin out of Vietnam versus some Euro trash trying to steal some bearer bonds.
Oh.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let's do this properly. Let's do this properly. Lethal Weapon side, go ahead. Mike, you
started it, Mike. You started it, Mike. You finished it.
Go ahead. Your villain was Gary Busey, which if you're gonna cast a villain in a movie, that's pretty darn good casting.
Mr. Joshua.
Mr. Joshua, go ahead. You've got the floor.
Perfect adversary for Martin Riggs, and even though Martin Riggs is built up to be a Rambo-esque type character, Joshua damn near beats his ass at the end of the movie. So there is some equality there as far as who's the badder of the bad. But you got the mercenaries with the machine guns and the heroin and Mr. Joshua, and who's the guy that actually plays the villain? Because he's more like the puppet master behind the whole deal. Mr. Joshua is the one that you actually see most of the time.
He's the guy from Halloween 6. The
guy who played Wynn.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, Dr. Wynn, yeah.
Yeah.
I forget
these guys are organized, bloodthirsty. I mean, it's a lot different than a snatch and grab. I mean, these guys are running a major drug ring here, and they're ruthless. And they're going to kill Murtaugh's family. I mean, does his wife is trapped in the building, but his rest of his family, aside from the reporters bugging him, aren't really in peril. But Murtaugh's entire family is in peril. They have his daughter held captive. They damn near torture Riggs to death.
They're torturing Murtaugh too.
They torture Murtaugh. He's like telling him go spit, and they're rubbing salt in his wound. And I don't know. I thought Gruber was more of a suave, smartass. He was just there. He was going to kill everybody, but his main thing was just getting the money and disappearing. It was a retirement grab. It was a heist film. Well, more than it was Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon, I felt like the villains had more danger to a larger area instead of just one location. Where Die Hard being in one location, only that one location was in danger. It was very contained once it was surrounded. Sure, they were able to outsmart the cops, but you know, when you have Deputy Chief of Police Dwayne T. Robinson running the show, what do you expect?
Well, you make a good point in that they're both very different types of villains, as far as personality is concerned, as far as, you know, sort of what the goal is, the end goal or what have you. So I mean, they are very different types of villains. Whereas I think Gruber is a more flashy, maybe a more memorable villain. You know, Busey's Mr. Joshua is probably the more imposing, threatening villain. So I guess it depends on
what you look for in a villain.
Exactly.
And he was able to take charge of situations, whereas Gruber's minions were basically like his dogs that would heel when he told them to. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like it's a close call because Gruber is so charismatic, but I think that the villains in Lethal Weapon are more dangerous, more akin to the villains in Die Hard 2.
What do you think, Rambo?
Well, I have to side because I'm on the Lethal Weapon crowd. So.
What do you have anything to add?
Let's see. We do have Gary Busey, and he's batshit insane in real life, so. That's a plus for us. I mean, just we weren't eating candy bars. The bad guys wouldn't stop eating candy bars. I got nothing. I mean, B-Movie Mike said I can't think of anything.
Mike pretty much said it all. Well, I'll turn the floor over to the lethal or to the Die Hard side of things, but I want to put a bug in the viewers' minds as far as the types of villains here. With Mr. Joshua, you have a villain that will just torture you sadistically until you die. With Hans Gruber, I always think of the scene with the guy where he's like, Hans, baby, booby, you know what I mean? And he's like drinking a Coke, and Hans is kind of like, you know, buttering him up and buddying him. He's like, oh yeah, boo, you know, like there's something equally frightening, I think, about both of them, in that you have one who's sort of that, you know, unstoppable killer, you can't reason with him anything. Then you have the other guy who's going to kind of buddy you up and, you know, kind of butter you up before killing you. I don't know. I don't know. Just want to put that bug in everybody's ear as far as what kind of villains we're talking about here. But go ahead, Die Hard team, Cole and Stingray.
Well, Hans Gruber is just a name that is known throughout cinema, and the people know. I don't think most people even think Mr. Joshua. They're like, oh yeah, Gary Busey, but it's not the character. It's Gary Busey. Whereas Hans Gruber is the character. It's Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. He's really getting into it and creating a distinct and memorable character. I don't know. When I talk to people about Lethal Weapon, if they bring up Mr. Joshua, they don't say Mr. Joshua. They just say Gary Busey, because Gary Busey can do that in several other films. Really, he's kind of known for being a nut job, and
he's generic. He's cliche.
Well, I think
I would say the bad guys are more cliched. Oh, it's our turn now. The bad guys
counterpoint.
We'll do a counterpoint.
The bad guys are a lot more cliched and less original in Lethal Weapon, especially for the time period. In the 80s, it was such a thing to have like villains that were like some sort of former group from like Vietnam. You know, it's like some sort of elite unit from Vietnam that, you know, they did this and now they got together and now they're mercs and stuff. Like that was used a whole lot. And what was neat about the villains in this is that they seem generic at first, but they're just masquerading it's almost a twist what they're about, because it's like, oh, it's this terrorist group, and they have all these political demands and stuff like that. And then when it turns out that that's all just a facade and all that, and you could say, well, there's, and the twist below is more common. It's like, oh, they're just thieves, but they're really smart and interesting thieves, and they're as ruthless as thieves can be because they're well trained, they're well outfitted, and they're well motivated. And as they weren't just threatening the hostages, they planned to kill them all along because they were going to blow the roof with them all on there, and to leave I guess no witnesses to who their real identities and what they were really after, to create mass confusion in the wake and kill anybody gets in their way. Plus, again, just for the timing of it all, Hans Gruber is just such a great villain for epitomizing sort of the feel of the 80s in a lot of ways. And when you have McClane against him, it's a really cool juxtaposition. Whereas I think in Lethal Weapon, it's kind of just more of the same. It's Mel Gibson is fighting a guy that he could have been. They're kind of similar. They're both unhinged. They both have military records and stuff like that. But Mel Gibson holds it together, and he's on a side for good, while the other guy decides to use his skills and ruthlessness to be a villain and do stuff. Whereas you've got John McClane, who's kind of the ultimate example of sort of just a blue-collar guy in a world that is fast becoming all about money. It's the 80s. It's the decade of greed and Gordon Gekko and stuff. And you've got these very cosmopolitan villains, and that's what they're all about. They're not about a political cause. They're not about murder or anything like that. They're just about getting bank, which was really what the 80s was about. And you have this great juxtaposition again of this New York cop that doesn't have much of a salary. He's going around his wife beater throughout the entire movie. And you've got these villains that are all wearing customized, highly stylized suits and stuff at one point. And the other thing is how much in common Gruber and his ilk even have with the people who they're robbing. Mr. Takanami, or whatever his name was, he's having a conversation with him, and he's like, oh, I really like your suit. He's like, I've got 2 of them myself. And he's talking to him about how, like, he knew some of the stuff. He said, I read it in Forbes magazine, because that's the kind of guy he is. He might be a ruthless killer and stuff, but he's high class, and he's into all that economics and stuff like that. He reads Forbes, and he likes to chill out with, I don't know, the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. So I just think all that makes him much more memorable and distinct and much more unique, that he's this sort of villain. And the fact that, again, that they're masquerading as terrorists, and they're really playing with everybody, making all these demands. He's reading off lists and stuff of, like, he's mentioning all these terrorist groups that are relevant and stuff, including the Quebec Liberation Front, which were real and stuff. And at one point he's talking about, like, the Asian Dawn or something like that. And one of his guys is like, Asian Dawn. He's like, I saw it in Times Magazine or something like that. It's really funny. So, yeah, I just feel like Gary Busey's always been really good at playing the unhinged villain, but it is sort of generic, and we've seen him do it again and again. As good as Alan Rickman is at being villains, his villains are all pretty different and distinct and stand out from each other. And the one that stands out above them all, that he's less known for, is definitely Hans Gruber, who is just a wonderful sort of adversary for our everyman John McClane, in that they're just on such different ends of the spectrum. Even physically, they look so different. At one point, you've even got where he's trying to trick McClane into thinking he's actually one of the party goers. He's kind of mocking McClane, like, oh, I'm pretending to be a stupid American like you, and all that stuff, really laying it on thick with his fake American accent and stuff. And John McClane very quickly shows that he's not some dumb American, because he catches on very quick and gives him the unloaded gun. But yeah, even though you could just say they're Eurotrash out to get some money, they're obviously very well trained and well committed.
Like mercenaries.
Like mercenaries.
Okay.
But I'm just saying,
they're not all
I'm saying they're as tough as any mercenary.
The computer
They're more
guy
memorable in that, unlike until Die Hard, pretty much you always had movies where the hero or heroes would fight against sort of just wave after wave of generic bad guys that don't have names or anything like that. This movie made an effort to show that, okay, here's a finite. They're not just going to throw waves at us and have us forget. There's actually a finite amount of terrorists. John McClane, in the dire situation he is counting them up and trying to figure out their names, listening to their radio chatter. So each of them has a name and stuff. There's even a moment where, of course, the main sort of henchman, Carl, it has this whole thing against McClane because one of the guys that McClane killed early on was his brother.
Mhm.
So it's actually much more personal, even with the secondary guys besides Gruber, where it's, McClane versus this named guy, McClane versus Carl. They're not just nameless red shirts that just go in there to get killed. Each one of them presents a pretty substantial challenge to him as he goes through, as he goes up against them. Whereas in most movies, there's just usually that part where it's like, okay, here's the mooks, you deal with the mooks. Then you get to the real bad guy. Maybe there's the dragon you fight before the bad guy. And this
Boss
movie.
fight.
Movie kind of does that a little bit with Carl, but really all of them have their moments, and all of them have something that makes them distinct, and it's at least slightly more memorable than so many other movies with the mercenaries and stuff like that, where they don't have names and they're just there to get killed and fall off the screen.
Okay, counterpoint, Lethal Weapon team.
Okay, so we have a self-important, pretentious prick
Yep.
who is a mercenary masquerading as a terrorist because he wants to rob a building to snatch and grab. Which one seems more? We have mercenaries that run heroin. That line seems, even though it seems cliche, it's cliche because it's more realistic. How many Eurotrash terrorists have blown up a building to steal bearer bonds versus how many mercenaries have turned to the bad side to run drugs and do other things? I don't remember McClane's children being tortured.
They thought of it first.
Wait.
What are we
Lethal
arguing
Weapon came out
here,
first.
Briz? What's
Lethal Weapon was out first.
We're
what's the exact
arguing.
words of it, though? What's the exact?
Oh, he reads Time magazine, so therefore I should be impressed.
No, most memorable villain, right?
Best villain.
Best villain. We're not talking about they steal the most oil or whatever the fuck these idiots are doing.
He was arguing
Lethal
about how
Weapon.
the mercenaries in Lethal Weapon are generic while defending the generic mercenaries in Die Hard.
Talking about best, most memorable villain. Hans Gruber is a pop culture icon. People have
Maybe
parties
that's because
and
nobody
clothes
knew who Alan Rickman was before Die Hard, but everybody knew who Gary Busey was. That's why he's associated with the character more than the name.
Gary Busey's known for getting in a motorcycle wreck and doing crystal meth, man. That's all he's known for.
Silver Bullet, Buddy Holly's story.
He's known for being an idiot, tearing out people's endocrine systems and shit.
I don't, not necessarily the most memorable, because sometimes the most memorable isn't the best. They're just the most memorable. This is who is the best villain. Who put up, who gave our hero the most difficult time.
Okay, I got you.
Who was the strongest?
Well, considering the way John McClane looks at the end of the movie, I think it's pretty easy to say who had the roughest time. Even though I do concede that yes, Mel Gibson and his partner got tortured. You have to give it to
Gibson
John
got
McClane.
his ass kicked. I mean,
John McClane
Murtaugh's holding him up in the front lawn at the end of the movie. He collapses in his arms.
That wife beater is black at the end. And
He beat the shirt off of him, man. Riggs doesn't even have a shirt on at the end of the movie. He's soaking wet. He's wearing pants. No, come on, no sign. He was barefoot too.
And there's more of them. If that means they're better, there are more villains.
But this is the point of the debate. You have you clearly have two very, very strong villains. Part of the reason why Die Hard and Lethal Weapon are so good is because they have strong villains. We were talking about the DC comic book movies earlier this show, and part of the reason why I think they've suffered outside of them the poor storytelling is they've had weak villains. Here we're talking about two really good freaking villains. You know what I mean? So Hans Gruber is the more recognizable one. He's the more iconic one. He's the more, you say Hans Gruber, people go, oh, yeah, Lethal Weapon, right? You say Mr. Joshua, people go, what? But
no, people go Die Hard, not Lethal Weapon.
But
name recognition amongst the casuals, I'll give you that. Your casual fan is probably going to be more able to name, Hans Gruber than they would Mr. Joshua or his boss. That part I'll give you. Pop culture impact. Gruber probably had more. I'm saying this because Rickman was able to be Hans Gruber without being Rickman. I didn't know who he was before I saw that. Every movie I saw after that, I'm like, oh, that's Hans Gruber. Mm-hmm. I mean, Gary Busey was always Gary Busey, so I don't think he had the same. He didn't have the same
He plays the exact same guy. in every
anonymity
movie.
to hide behind. Everybody knew who he was, and he was perfect for the role, and that's why they chose him.
Let me ask the audience. Let me ask the audience right now. Put it in the chat. Who's the better villain, Hans Gruber or Mr. Joshua?
And Mr. Joshua was just the henchman. He's not actually the main villain.
I guess that proves that your main villain's kind of weak then.
You guys couldn't even think of his name.
He's a Black Ops coordinator.
I'm not saying that. To me, I think I Come in Peace with Dolph Lundgren is the best Christmas action movie. So
That's a pretty good. You know,
you have Dolph Lundgren and an alien addicted to drugs.
there you go. Well, you know, somebody mentioned
Like shoot CDs or something.
Shoot CDs.
Shoot
Yeah, that's all.
yeah.
And
Somebody mentioned in the chat that you know, First Blood takes place during Christmas as well. So
yeah, there is
Crazy.
a Christmas lights. Yeah,
Yeah.
And Town of Hope. That's what it is. Hope.
So while the chat is debating who's the better villain, I see one vote for Hans.
Yeah, there's not going to be a debate. Let's be honest.
I see.
It's going to be Hans.
I do see a lot of love for Busey though. I see some love for Busey with Mr. Gassman.
Yeah, I've been surprised at the Lethal Weapon support on here tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We've had quite a bit of Lethal Weapon support in the chat.
People know what's good.
I need to
Actually,
moderate. I'm gonna have to moderate this chat a little better, I think.
I may have to revoke your moderator for this show.
I guess to put in since I'm with Lethal Weapon, one thing is there is a physical fight with the main villain, and if you're into that, your hero getting in the physical with the main villain, you do that. Have the weapon where Riggs and Gary Busey do have a physical onslaught instead of just more of a quick. I don't want to say psychological, but
No,
quicker
here,
one with Die Hard.
strongest villains. Okay, Riggs has the same training as the mercenary, so he's able to recognize the mercury switches and figure out what's going on when a normal cop wouldn't know the difference. So he's able to help them figure out what's going on because of his training. Meanwhile, John McClane, who's just a street smart cop from New York, is able to thwart Hans Gruber, who's supposedly this great villain. But a lowly street cop is able to be the fly in the ointment to fuck up his big plans. Whereas it took an actual person with the same training to bring down the mercenary ring in Lethal Weapon.
John McClane's just that good.
Or Lucky.
Okay, so we've
Lucky that
he's
Hans is
lucky.
that stupid.
When in doubt, duct tape a gun to your back.
No, I was going to say he's not stupid, but I mean, yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense that Riggs would have the physical fight with the other guy. That's what it's for. But that's the point. As I said, it's kind of a better juxtaposition in that you have a more physical guy in John McClane fighting a more cerebral guy. But in the end, how does he take him out? He takes him out by outsmarting him.
There you go. Okay.
Which shouldn't have been that easy.
What? I mean, they're very different movies in that regard. I mean, Die Hard,
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
in one building, it's claustrophobic, and then Lethal Weapons. It's two guys, and they're out in the open fighting different villains.
Yeah, there's like car chases and stuff.
Yeah, so
It was Hans' ego that ultimately brought him down. He was such a self-important prick that he didn't think anybody could be smarter than him. And when you think you're the smartest person in the room, you usually get proven wrong.
Which is the mark of many villains in pop culture.
Well,
Ego.
Let's move on, and we talked about the villains. Let's talk about our heroes, and I'm gonna pose the question to you guys like this: McClane or Riggs? Who'd you rather have a beer with?
This one's gonna be tough.
well, the problem is Riggs has probably already had a few.
both of them probably already
I
had
guess
a few.
it depends on how much you like to drink.
Well, no, that'd be bad to say.
I'm gonna which side? Let me ask the audience first. Already Stone Gassman's thrown out there. Riggs hands down. So we've got one vote for Riggs. Orc wants to know: is there a loaded gun involved? For the sake of argument, we'll say no guns involved.
Well, the original opening of Lethal Weapon was supposed to be Riggs in a bar being attacked by two drunks that he easily dispatches. Then they decided to put the Christmas tree scene in instead.
Yeah.
So who would you feel safer with at a bar?
I'll be honest with you. I think it would be pretty depressing conversation with either one. So
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. Let me start with the Die Hard team. John McClane. John McClane. You going to have a beer with the guy? I mean, is he going to be a fun drinking buddy?
is he going to talk about politics the whole time?
Maybe he'd be a good listener because he's probably not much of a talker. So maybe I guess if you wanted to like talk and have somebody listen, he might be good for that. Although he might just be passed out drunk next to you.
He's just going to talk about his fucked up marriage the whole time.
I think they're both characters that would rather drink alone.
Yeah,
I don't think either one of them would really be good company. You have a psycho and an asshole. I don't like hanging out with either one.
Well,
I don't know. Honestly, Riggs is the more personable of the two. I can give you that. But, like, Riggs actually knows how to like interact with human beings and be kind of nice to them. Whereas John McClane, he's kind of the same no matter who he's talking to.
So he's an asshole.
Yeah.
well, John,
Like, Riggs is definitely the more pleasant.
I think Riggs would be the more believable friend, even though he's psycho. But hey, if you have a psycho that's actually a friend, you don't have to worry about other psychos. Bonus.
even in Lethal Weapon, there's a scene with him and Murtaugh having a drink, and Riggs is having fun. When he pressed the button and he turned on the boat, you look for this, Captain? You assholes! And he's the guy who'll play around with you if you become friends, like Murtaugh, and have a beer. John McClane would just get pissed and annoyed because he's going to have a hangover. Like in
Bitch
Die
about
Hard
his
3.
wife and his boss and his job and the fucking terrorists and yeah.
So I mean, it depends on who you are, I guess. I mean, if you like to bitch about stuff, he might be a good guy to be with because you could both like feed off each other and bitch about stuff.
Yeah. It's all that damn fake
Like
news, right?
if you're like a surly drunk, like you might get along fine with another surly drunk.
Well, but I think you guys raised the question of like which one would be the better, like because I mean both of them can handle themselves,
right?
So I mean, which one would you rather have in your corner during a drunken bar fight?
Riggs. Definitely Riggs.
Oh, no.
What an
McClane's
odd-
got
what an
that
odd question.
McClane luck. He's got that McClane luck.
And the
like,
f-
things
and-
just sort of work
and-
out for him.
In the
And he's
first,
tough.
in the first movie, I'll say Riggs because he knows martial arts, and like you said, there was that scene where we did see him in a bar and he took care of two guys like nothing, and he has like John McClane. The part is that he's a normal guy; he'll do whatever he can. Martin Riggs is trained in martial arts combat, at least in the movie. He's much more fluent in martial arts. Riggs.
John McClane, though, he can take a beating. He can take the beating while you run away. You know what I mean?
Use him as a shield.
Yeah, there you go. Riggs could hold his own. He could be like, okay, Riggs, you take those 5. I'll take the little guy, and Riggs would be fine. With McClane, you're just like throwing McClane at the bunch while you.
Well, Riggs is not afraid to die, so I think that's a good quality to bring to the table. But so we're not talking about Murtaugh at all in this.
Okay. Let me.
I want to be with Murtaugh.
Yeah, I mean, he's the obvious choice, honestly. If he's there.
Okay, here's Orc's hard hitting question. Who would you share a pizza with? And what toppings would you have?
Joe Pesci as Leo Getz. There you go.
This just asks the hard hitting stuff.
Usually it's more detailed. He wants at least to know the toppings too.
Well, it all depends on where. I mean, I would rather have New York pizza than tofu
same
pizza.
Here. So like,
you know what I mean?
John McClane in New York.
Or should supply all the questions for the soda.
Their McClane wins hands down. I want that New York slice.
Well, he wins because of the pizza, not because of him. Location is everything.
Which character would you watch Grave Encounters with?
I'd watch it with Riggs because he'd shoot himself 10 minutes in.
Could you imagine Riggs and Riggs
would shoot himself 10 minutes in, and McClane would shoot the TV 10 minutes in.
Yeah, could you imagine those characters watching Grave Encounters while they're drinking?
I'm gonna have to pick Riggs because getting drunk and watching the Three Stooges, that's got to be.
That would be fun.
Because McClane's such a miserable prick that I don't think
Nothing gives him joy. That's one of the reasons like Christmas is so great for that movie. It's like he doesn't matter. He's just a joyless prick no matter what time of year it is.
Like I said, if you save somebody's life twice and they still think you're an asshole, that says a lot about you.
That says a lot about you as a person.
But he did marry her in the first place somehow. So the point is, there might have been some point where like people could stand him. Like I said, a big part of the Die Hard movies is just sort of watching him deteriorate. Because apparently there was a time that John McClane even had a little bit of hair.
Yeah,
and that all goes away.
Uh-huh.
John McClane has hair.
His kids hate him in the later terrible sequels. I mean, it's
his kids hate him.
Yeah,
Riggs is rocking a pretty incredible mullet in the first movie. So
he is. That's true.
Gotta say he wins in the hair department all the way.
Yeah, he had hair.
Well, let's talk about action set pieces. Which movie had the best action set piece? And now I think when you what first off, let's identify an action set piece from each movie. I think what's the most identifiable action set piece from Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, and then debate which one was better.
I think there's three worthy of mentioning in Lethal Weapon. The chase scene at the end where they kill the bad guy and he's barbecuing his nuts on Hollywood Boulevard. That's a good one. The scene where they kill Adkins.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty memorable scene. And then, of course, the scene where Riggs is a sniper and he's about to take out Joshua when the other two guys come up behind him and capture everybody and then take them for torture.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are three really good, tense action sequences in that film.
Okay. Which one would you like to pick to debate as the best of the two?
Oh, probably going to have to go with the finale.
Okay. What do you think, Die Hard side?
I think Die Hard's interesting because it's not one of those movies that relies on like a big one here, a big one there, a big one here. It's just sort of like almost just a consistency of like good, maybe not great, but good throughout. And I'll say the climax gets pretty great, but it's more about just not having much downtime. There's a little bit of downtime here and there, but he's just sort of running from one action sequence to the next, and there's just a great consistency to them. Of course, what's I think always very memorable is him, jumping off the roof as it explodes with the like the fire hose around him and blasting his way through the window. That's always going to be a really memorable moment from that. But since it's restricted to one location, you don't have car chases and things like that. But yeah, I feel like Die Hard relies more on just consistently good action sequences rather than like taking a break and then having a big moment and then having another big moment. So I like that approach a lot because it just makes the movie very watchable and there's kind of never a dull moment.
And in the openings, of course, you have John McClane listening to Run DMC with Argyle, or you have Anthony Kiedis' dad trying to kill Mel Gibson at the Christmas tree lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that just shoot me, shoot this fucking prick, Just how how the crazy look in his eye and how he has to calm himself down at the end. There's a sense of danger and an impending excitement coming from this character. That, there's Bruce Willis bitching about, I'm in fucking LA and fuck this shit.
Okay, well, wait a second. We can't.
So when you open up with the slam bang action, man, come on.
You can't use that as
let's go.
criteria for your debate. That the fact that the movies don't have the exact same action beats.
I'm just saying, Lethal Weapon starts not letting you know what you're in store for. This is what.
Yeah, I'm just saying. You can watch. You can just say, well, at 28:14, Riggs and Burkhart are having coffee while McClane's climbing through the. That's ridiculous to say they don't sync up action-wise.
I don't think this syncs up either. Riggs jumps off a building with a jumper. You want to jump because I want to jump. Meanwhile, McClane's making fists with his toes.
Riggs is trying to hook up with like a 14-year-old girl. And,
well, let's pick. Let's pick.
What about the elevator? The elevator explosion.
Yes,
that's what I was going to mention.
Look at the shitload of screen doors.
The most iconic, I think, the action sequence that stands out the most in Die Hard is probably that sequence that Stingray mentioned. So why don't you guys take that one, and let's go ahead and let's start with Let's start with the Lethal Weapon side. Go ahead, Mike and Rambo.
Go ahead, Mike. You picked it.
Riggs chases down a dude on foot. He's like, fuck the car. Boom, I'm gone. He just takes off running with his gun after Joshua while Murtaugh goes after the main bad guy. Flips the car, blows up, burns up, gunfire everywhere. The final fight in the front yard where Murtaugh's like, I'm in charge here, back off, let him fight, which is very unrealistic, but still very fun. I don't know. How can you top that? Okay, so he takes some C4, attaches it to a computer, and throws it down an elevator shaft. That is myopic to begin with. It's a one-note thing. It blows out some doors. He took out a couple with that blast. We get some funny dialogue from Dwayne T. Robinson, but it's a very brief situation, whereas I think the ending of Lethal Weapon has many different parts to it. It's a much bigger in expanse. It takes place in many different locations, ends up at Murtaugh's house. I don't know. I gotta go for that one, and that's why.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that sequence, Rambo?
I guess, again, with all things, it depends what kind. I mean, I know it's one action scene, but are you okay with it all being in just one building, or do you want a bit more of the variety of action scenes where, because it's not just in one building, you're able to have a sniper sequence on the outside, you're able to have a car chase sequence or chase among traffic, or having stuff indoors and outdoors, and to have that bit of freedom. So it depends on what you are looking for in your action sequences. I will say that Lethal Weapon does have a bit more variety just because of the concept of the film, where you have everywhere outside to play with. It's not just confined to one building.
And you have Riggs and Murtaugh. Would you have two separate things going on at the same time, with Riggs pursuing one and he's pursuing the other, whereas Powell just sits around eating Twinkies and arguing with Dwayne T. Robinson? I mean, he gets his moment at the end with one shot, but I think Murtaugh is really much more involved in the action, and therefore you
Let
get
the record say
much
I did
more.
not bring up Powell because he's irrelevant, and I don't care.
No. They're co-stars. Mel Johnson is not a.
He couldn't have done it without him, right?
No. He's supporting cast. We're talking about two guys versus one guy here.
Well,
John McClane would be dead without Al, because he was going to shoot John McClane, and Sergeant Al Powell shot him in the head. So
that's true.
Like you said, that's one moment. After he'd done all the hard stuff.
The most important moments.
Well, go ahead, Die Hard. Die Hard contingent. If you want to go with the elevator scene, or if you want to do the rooftop jump into the thing, or the scene where everything's exploding and Blade's having to run across the floor in his bare feet. And this may be another question of just which movie has the best overall action. Just action sequences overall. That might be a good criteria as well. Best single action set piece, and then just best overall action, just overall. But go ahead, Die Hard.
Well, as Rambo pointed out, like Die Hard's at a bit of a disadvantage here because it doesn't have the variety of locations and scenarios and stuff like that. But having said that, I think it sort of does the best it can possibly do with the one building. You've got elevator shafts, you've got gunfight in offices, you've got gunfights and physical fights in unfinished floors that have construction and stuff around them. And of course, you have jumping off the roof, being shot at from a helicopter and stuff. I mean, they really make the most of the space they have. They really do everything they can with the locations that are there. There's fairly good variety, despite the fact that it's in one location, I think, and you can't have like a car chase or anything like that. They get a lot of different stuff involved, and you do get a lot of the variety you like to see in other action movies, whether it's a prolonged gunfight or a physical fight between a couple of foes and stuff like that. I mean, the fight with Carl was awesome and brutal. It starts off with guns and then it turns into physicality. I really like the scene where they're being shot at in the office area, and they blast all the glass and stuff. Yeah, I think they do a really good job of making the absolute most of a somewhat limited location and giving you quite a bit of variety. Considering it's one guy versus one group in one location, you get
Right.
they really maximize the possibilities. I think.
Well, that's
It's not
why
just John
so
McClane
iconic.
going from room to room shooting people.
Yeah.
It's broken up quite well with fairly realistic scenarios. It's like, okay, now he has to deal with this. I like Die Hard for that reason too. I like movies that like have like each section. The characters have to keep solving problems. Not to go off script here, but I always thought Michael Crichton was really good at writing that stuff. He was so good at it, and it shows up in some of the adaptations of his movies, like Jurassic Park and stuff like that. And even the second Jurassic Park, where it's just like every time a problem is solved, like there's two more coming down on top of you that you have to deal with. And I think Die Hard's another one of those movies that does that pretty well, where he's just sort of supposed to be making his way from floor to floor, but each floor is sort of presenting its own sort of unique challenges to it, almost like going through a video game and stuff. Again, it's not just, oh, there's some terrorists on this floor, shoot them, go up, there's some terrorists on this floor, shoot them. He's dealing with different sorts of obstacles and stuff, and dealing with it in sort of a free-flowing creative way, which is another reason why we really love John McClane, is because he just does so well at improvising and thinking in the moment. So I don't know, it's not a movie that you recall for one specific big action sequence. Like I said, I think its strength is that it's a consistency of good action sequences following each other, rather than a really big one here and a really big one there.
Well, Biz, I wanted to mention this real quick, and in memory of Ort, he's here with us in spirit. There's a meme that I've seen floating around the past few years. It's not Christmas until I see Hans Gruber fall off the Nakatomi Plaza.
Yep.
So I think that pretty much sums up this entire conversation, doesn't it? It's
Well, fair enough. I mean, I'm kind of stumped here, because I kind of want to go down the path of, okay, well, which movie had the better action sequences overall? Because I think the scope of the landscape, or the fact that they could use vehicles or not use vehicles, I don't think that should be, a kick-ass action sequence is a kick-ass action sequence, whether it involves a gun, a rocket, a car, a tank, a fist fight. A good action sequence is a good action sequence.
Also depends what kind of action you like. Some people just like fisticuffs, while some people just like shoot 'em ups. So it also depends which action to you appeals to you the most.
I would, and I would say too, I would say that Die Hard seemed to me to have the more, even though it was confined to a building, it seemed to have the more kind of eye-catching action sequences, the explosions and the jumping off the roof, and that sort of thing. Whereas with Lethal Weapon, it was more of a I don't want to I want to say a pedestrian kind of action. That doesn't mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean more of a grounded kind of, foot chases and fist fights and that kind of action. Whereas with Die Hard, again, it was explosions, it was machine guns, it was, helicopters with machine guns. It was, that kind of action.
Oh, wasn't there a machine gun helicopter that took out?
I think there actually was. Yeah, now that I think of it, there was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. I guess if you take the same amount of firepower and condense it in one area, it will seem like more than if you spread it out over a larger area. But affecting a larger area would actually do more widespread damage. And you have a character in John McClane who, he's street smart and he could take a punch, but without a gun, he's not as deadly.
Well, you could say that about almost anybody. Without a gun, they're not as deadly.
But Riggs could turn anything into a weapon. You never knew what he was going to do.
Bullseye.
Well, supposedly Riggs was a sniper in Vietnam, and he was actually supposed to be really, really good, which is why he was sniping at Joshua.
Well, sure. So you take away his sniper rifle, and he's less deadly. I mean, if you're a super good sniper, that doesn't mean you're suddenly lethal with a lateral.
I don't know. Riggs could use his hands and feet. He was trained.
Riggs broke somebody's neck after he was electrocuted while he was tied to a wall in running water. He broke that guy's neck. I mean,
well, keep in mind this is a movie.
And keeping with that,
that's why I'm saying is that a guy with Riggs's talent, based in his Vietnam Special Forces background, you would expect him to have more talent than an average street cop in New York. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Sure, but that doesn't necessarily make the action better. One of the things that's so great, endearing about John McClane is how he's often at a disadvantage and finds a way to win. I know we're still on the first movie. When he's in the
he benefits from the arrogance.
He's getting the shit kicked out of him by what's her name, Q, whatever her name is, Maggie Q, and he's just kind of no match for her. But he winds up beating her anyway because he's John McClane. He doesn't play by the rules, and I love it. And that's kind of how it works. It's like, yeah, he's not physically as good as somebody like Riggs. He's not trained. He doesn't have the moves and stuff, but he adapts, and he's got some good luck, and and that's satisfying to see.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, that's part of the appeal. He's the everyman. He's you can relate to him as he's kind of an out of shape beat cop.
That has to rely on the ignorance and the arrogance of his enemies.
You're right. John McClane's just incompetent, I guess.
He's lucky.
Well, let's talk.
The Die Hard movies are just a bunch of.
Riggs is too much of a pussy to do it, so he can't. If he would just shoot himself in the head and do it, man up.
A highly trained agent is pretty damn lucky too, and that he's dodged like 10 trillion rounds of ammunition in those movies. Was that his awesome MI6 training? I know I'm bringing up something outside the debate.
Let's move on. I think there's no debating the fact that both of them are pretty darn good action movies. So, I mean, I think we can just kind of just say that they're both pretty darn good action.
It's become personal. I'm never watching Lethal Weapon
again. Let's talk about psychological stability here.
Let's talk about, why don't we talk about fun factor? Which movie is just the more fun to watch? Which movie has the greater, I guess, replay value? Fun factor. Let's talk fun factor. Let me give the floor to Team Die Hard. Fun factor.
I'm biased anyway because I like it more. I mean, I really like Lethal Weapon too, but I watch Die Hard like every year. So
what is it about Die Hard that makes you like it more?
That's I think we've pretty much listed it off here. I mean,
it's Argyle, right? He's the determining factor. Argyle, man.
It's Argyle. It's Reginald VelJohnson.
Okay.
You come for Bruce Willis, you stay for the VelJohnson.
He's a weird character, man. I love how easily entertained he is. He's like, I don't mind waiting down in the limo for several hours because I can play music and have dance parties and talk on the phone. I just love how happy he is. He's not bored. I'd be super bored if I was like, oh man, I have to wait down here for the guy. He's like, it's a party here in my limo all by myself.
If you had a car phone in '88, you were the coolest person on earth.
Right, and I guess that's kind of what it was, right? He's got a car phone and stuff, it's like, guess where I'm calling from? I'm old enough to have had that conversation. I guess there's a lot of viewers that that they've never had that conversation. They never called and said, guess where I'm calling from? Because they're, the novelty of calling from somewhere is pretty much doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you're calling from Mount Everest or you're on a tidal wave or something. I just mean
I'm in the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm outside right now. Yeah, I'm outside. Remember that, but yeah, I think that's what Argyle's going through. I'm in a car, dude. But I don't even know what we're talking about. I'm just saying, I think Argyle's funny because he's so bizarre.
But that's part of the fun factor.
Yeah, sure, fun factor. Argyle chilling out and partying. Sorry. Got them maxing and relaxing, all cool, shooting some people outside of school. I don't know. But yeah, Die Hard's a lot of fun. Die Hard's a lot of fun. Most people seem to watch it every year around Christmas or watch it multiple times. And I think you could say the same thing about the sequels. They definitely have the fun factor going. And again, it's just seeing the clashing of those sorts of forces.
I think we need to get into the sequels, to be honest, because I think
that's
where it's really going to show. That's where it's really going to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I've mined the first Die Hard for everything it has. Yeah, so
Counterpoint.
Go ahead.
You got your Twinkie eating cops. You got your Dwayne T. Robinson. You got your Argyle, who comes to the rescue, by the way, at the end of the movie and punches that guy, knocks him out in one punch. That's believable. Anyway, we'll go on.
No, the guy he punches is the most nerdy guy. He's the tech guy. Point of order, he punches out the nerdy tech guy, not the highly trained physical terrorist.
Believability. Come on now. We'd be here for a little while.
Of course they weren't going to have him take on Carl. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Lethal Weapon, though. The opening scene when he does the Three Stooges stick where he smacks the guys across the face and pokes them in the eyes and does the curly thing before he... Not knowing what Riggs is going to do makes Murtaugh the best of the straight men in between the two films. The jump scene. Do you really want to jump? Do you want to? Well, I want to. Come on, let's jump. And then there was hilarity involved in that. I mean, just the crazy way that Riggs did things. I mean, the comedy came from Murtaugh's reactions and just the reactions of people around. I think there was equal comedic moments. I mean, of course, you have John McClane with his one-liners, yippee-ki-yay, and all that kind of shit, but ho, 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 now I have a machine gun. I mean, yeah, there are some funny things in Die Hard, but I think there's equally amusing things in Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
You're only playing for the tie here. I respect that. You can't win.
So we're talking about why the film is fun. That was the question. Why?
Fun factor, yes.
Which one has the best fun factor?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I'd only say Lethal Weapon is fun for the chemistry between the two leads, where the banter's the wrong word, but the chemistry they have with each other, you really see an arc with, especially Mel Gibson's character, how he is at the beginning of the film is very different from the ending of the film, and in a way that's fun to see a character like that who you grow to like then become sane because of getting a family for the Christmas season. So, and the comedy they have with each other and the bond that they form with each other, it's a great fun bond to watch, which then carries over for the four movies, which is the best part of those movies is the chemistry and the bond the two share with each other. And it has... I love the theme song at the end. We actually did a theme song. There's no song that says Die Hard, but there's a song called Lethal Weapon, and it's a total 80s. Mm-hmm. It's a total 80s song. Honeymoon Suite is the name of the band.
Lethal Weapon does have that recurring saxophone. I'll give it that. All the Lethal Weapons have had that sax.
That's true.
Sexy saxophone, man.
The first Lethal Weapon is kind of at a disadvantage because it's such a dark film. The sequels become lighter and the comedy comes, into the forefront a lot more in the sequels. The first film's a lot darker. So they weren't really playing it for laughs. Riggs is a tragic character. The shit he had to endure in Vietnam and the death of his wife, which is, mentioned. He actually gets to meet the guy that killed his wife in the sequel. So that kind of brings it together, whereas all the Die Hard films are basically unrelated. But the Lethal Weapon films have a continuity that I think is tighter. So a lot of things that happen in this film kind of pay off.
Not necessarily. It's Hans Gruber's brother in part 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's related.
So since we're already kind of talking about the sequels a little bit, why don't we go into detail and talk about the quality of the sequels? Which film series had the better sequels, Lethal Weapon or Die Hard? And I want to start with the Lethal Weapon team.
Well, the worst film of either franchise is Die Hard 5, aka A Good Day to Fall Asleep. So
The one that's still in plastic? Might I remind you?
No matter what you say of the sequels, the absolute worst that anyone would say of both franchises is Die Hard 5.
I can
with
see.
Oh,
Joel-
no, I disagree with that.
I don't.
Die Hard 5 is worse than any Lethal Weapon film you'll mention. Die Hard 5 with the fucking guy who did Max Payne or whatever the fuck that stupid
I don't mean to
weapon was.
bail on my cause, but I can't disagree with that, man.
Why didn't we immediately go to part 5, which they both suck ass in both movies? Both suck.
There is no Lethal
Which
Weapon
pile of
5.
shit is worse? Like,
They were
this
smart enough
shit
to
over
stop
here.
at 4 with Lethal Weapon.
There is no Lethal Weapon 5, so
Oh,
there you
that's
go.
right. That's right.
Die Hard 5, of course I'm going to use that.
The one with Jet Li.
Love that one.
It's 4. Jet Li is better than who is the name of the villain in Die Hard 5, Jay?
I'm
Who's
not
the
ever
actor
gonna.
for
I'm
that?
not defending the movie. I said I wasn't going to defend it. Man, I'm
Well, whoever it was better than the villain in Die Hard 4.
let's
Okay, let's
measure the other
let's go
better
to
sequels.
let's go to Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon 2, 3.
2 versus 2. Okay, Die Hard 2 versus Lethal Weapon 2.
It's definitely more of a personal enemy for the villain because you find out it was the person that killed Martin Riggs' wife before, and then not only that, kills his new wife. I mean, his new girlfriend. So you have a personal revenge aspect, and killed their partners, their cop partners, and almost kills Riggs. I mean, in the original script, he was supposed to die. So it's definitely a more intimidating. In seriousness, Die Hard 2's villain is intimidating too. I mean, he crashes a plane. I can't deny that. But on a personal note, the villains that fit Die Hard 2, it's his wife in danger too. But in Lethal Weapon 2, it has a nice addition of Leo Getz, Joe Pesci's character, which has become part of pop culture. If you want to mention pop culture.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever you want, Leo gets.
They fucked you at the drive-you. First they meet you, but then they fuck you.
So the fun factor in 2 goes through the roof with Leo gets. I mean,
that by the end, it definitely gets a very personal revenge, dark story in a way. When he carries his girlfriend out, who's been killed, drowned, and that he finds, and that's definitely a good emotional sequence. And you don't have anything.
And the villains, the South Africans, these whether they're laundering money or whatever they were doing. Man, Die Hard 2, you're back to the mercenaries that Cole complained about in Lethal Weapon, the first one. You got some generic mercenaries trying to escort a deposed leader, and their whole purpose is just to get this guy out of the airport and kill whoever they have to do it. They're just very paint by numbers, by the books mercenaries. I'm not saying it's not a fun film. I'm just saying that Lethal Weapon 2 with the apartheid themes to it is deeper and maybe more socially relevant at the time. And I think the villains were more threatening.
Well, yeah, I mean, people mentioning fun. I mean, Lethal Weapon 2, you have the scene where Danny Glover and Joe Pesci are meeting with this guy, and the guy's like, "But you're black," and Danny Glover just makes this whole huge scene about it to fake him out, and it's much funnier than I make it out to be. And this change just from the beginning. It starts off right in the band. I mean, in just a few seconds, we're right in a car chase scene that's full of energy and intensity. So, and you got one of the Beatles doing a song for the movie, "Cheer Down." You got big action set pieces. I mean, you have the entire building that falls at the end that Riggs pulls down. Great practical effects. You have, again, the addition of a great new character of Leo Getz, and you still have that chemistry between the two leads. And you have the great line, "Diplomatic tea, just been revoked."
Yeah. Diplomatic immunity. It's just been revoked.
You have the bad guy from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Yes, Joss Ackland as a villain.
Joss Ackland's almost always a villain. The one time he's nice is like Mighty Ducks. He's such a nice guy in Mighty Ducks.
What about what about Lethal Weapon 3? What about Lethal Weapon 4? Was there any drop off from the as the sequels went on in the Lethal Weapon series?
Are you asking me? I would say, yeah.
No, I'm asking the Lethal Weapon team.
I think these guys are delusional, so they're going to say no.
In part 2, Riggs has grown as a character from the first film, and of course his girlfriend he is very tragic as far as the loves of his life. They seem to be killed by enemies of his profession. And the guy, he's like, imagine my surprise when I pulled back a mop of blood-soaked hair and saw a woman's face. Just the way. Then Briggs is able to rebound, and he finds a female that's a lot like him. They're comparing scars. There's some really good comedy as far as that goes. I thought that her character was a strong character. It wasn't just a throwaway character, and was a compliment to Riggs. They were more like a team, more than him and Murtaugh were. It was, I don't know, I thought 3 was really good.
Okay. But what about Die Hard 4? Lethal Weapon 4, I'm sorry.
Lethal Weapon 4 is my least favorite of the Lethal Weapon films. By now, Leo Getz is now, they keep finding, he wasn't even supposed to be in part 4, but at the last minute, they thought they needed him, so they just wrote him in. So he's kind of shoehorned in there a little bit. And the character of Butters is just there to be a foil for Murtaugh. And Chris Rock in the role is just kind of there. I think he kind of phones it in a little bit. He's just Chris Rock.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that Lethal Weapon 4 is the weakest of the series, but when you compare it to Die Hard 4 with Timothy Elephant and the Command Center, I know it's Elephant. He just like his girlfriend is 3 times more badass than he is, and he's just like this really pissed off little code nerd that's mad because he didn't get what he wanted, so he's going to show him, and I'm going to have a fire sale, and I'll shut you down and end your 401k. And he wasn't threatening at all. He was annoying. He was like somebody that needed a good ass whooping. That's all. So yeah, 4. I have to give it to Lethal Weapon versus Die Hard 4, but it is still the weakest of the original. They could have left Lethal Weapon as a trilogy, and it would have been fine. Mm. I think Riggs was too old by the time they brought in Jet Li in 4 for Riggs to be a match, because Jet Li is such a badass. I mean, they had to have him slow down because he was moving faster than the camera could record him. When he was, the director had to tell him to slow down his movements because we can't record you. You're moving faster than the camera can see you. I think that would have been maybe a better foil in the first film. If you wanted to replace Joshua with the Jet Li character, that would have been more believable. But
yeah, Jet Li is much better than Timothy Oliphant with his fucking teeth.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, Jet Li is a badass, where Oliphant is just like a little pissed off computer guy. He's got no balls. He's all hide behind the computer and I'll take away your money, ruin your life. He was annoying.
Always at the wrong place at the wrong time. Like always talking to his fucking teeth for some reason.
And they decided to make it PG-13, which I really thought hurt the 4th Die Hard film.
Let's turn the floor over to the Die Hard team, and let's see how they defend their sequels.
We don't have a Die Hard 5, so
yeah.
I'll give him that. I'm not so great at Die Hard 2. It's the one I've probably seen the least, not counting the last one, honestly. It comes on TV, heavily edited a lot, and I don't like watching it that way, so it's been a long time. I mean, I like Die Hard 2. I do. It's an enjoyable movie, but 3 is really the one that makes me think it's a strong sequel, as I really like Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's probably the first Die Hard that I saw. I like it's kind of a fake out with Jeremy Irons, because it's the same thing. How his brother faked them out by making it seem like he's a terrorist, but he's a thief, and this guy does the same thing. It's like, oh, it's revenge, but it's not revenge. He's also a thief, just like his brother. And I even like how he has that little conversation where he's like, your brother was an asshole. He's like, he was. You had his number. He's an asshole. Like that. But I don't know. I always liked 3 a lot because it was really the first time you gave the chance. I mean, what made Die Hard 1 so great was that it was, in one location and did that thing. Die Hard 2 moves around a bit, but I love how Die Hard 3 moves all over New York. It's finally, you get to take the, cut John McClane loose and let him let him run over a big area, and they're like, "Hello, how can we adapt this and make it big and grand enough?" It's like, we'll give him Samuel L. Jackson to run around with. It works out really well. I mean, they're actors that, like, when you see them together, it's just like you're kind of amazed it's the first time they're like doing scenes together because they're so good, because they play off each other so well. Like, honestly, they could have just done another Die Hard that had like Samuel Jackson in it again. They should have struck with the iron's heart and done another one in the 90s where those two could have been together again. That was kind of a missed opportunity. But yeah, I really like 3. Just because it still feels Die Hard, even though it's really different. 2, of course, still has some really good moments, and it tries. I feel like it kind of sometimes tries too hard to be like recapture the first one, because it's at Christmas again and stuff, and Family Matters Cop is there again for kind of no reason and stuff. But Jay, help me out. Say what's good about Die Hard 2.
I like the subplot with the red clips and the blue tape and the red tape on the clips, the live rounds versus the blanks. That's a really cool scene. And who's it's the dad from what, Good Times or something is the guy there?
Johnny Amos.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, I give him credit.
It's Die Hard in an airport.
Yeah.
But no, as much as I love Die Hard 2, I think I actually like Die Hard 3 better.
Yeah, I was saying Die Hard 3 is my favorite Die Hard sequel. I've always really liked it, and it had it gave you some variety. I like the idea that he's making him solve these stupid little puzzles and stuff, and it's just sort of a different kind of thing. Again, it's distraction. It's like how his brother distracted by claiming to be a terrorist. This guy is distraction, claiming to be a terrorist with a fixation on McClane, but he's just sort of using that as an excuse to be like a diversion from what he's really doing. He's sending them all around so that they can pull off this really cool, elaborate robbery. So once again, it's thieves, but once again, it's ruthless, dangerous thieves.
Well, Jeremy Irons, I think, is a great villain, too.
And they're pulling off something super ambitious, and they are killing people to get in their way, and he's got that crazy chick that, like, that's a really intense scene where that guy is down in the guard station and he knows no one's coming to help him, and he takes the shotgun and he's trying to like defend himself, knowing he's like screwed, and then the chick comes in from behind and like slashes him to pieces. That's super intense, and John McClane's not even involved in that. It's before he gets there. It's just sort of showing what he's up against. So I don't know. As far as quality of sequels go, Die Hard is at least pretty solid, and yeah, it falls off a cliff with the 5th one. I have to agree with Mike what he said about the Timothy Olyphant stuff. It is true, but there's still a watchability factor there in Die Hard 4. I don't know, it still has enough good action going on. Because I agree, like, I think they tried too hard. They were trying to, let's really take him out of his element. Now he's dealing with a new sort of villain who's doing cyber terrorism, and I agree that is kind of weak, but I understand what they're going for. As I said, even though Timothy Olyphant himself is not very dangerous or intimidating, at least he employs some forces that are... Maggie Q is pretty entertaining, I think. And like I said, that's probably the best thing about any Die Hard since 3 is John McClane's fight with her, because he wins it in total John McClane fashion. Like, he gets his ass kicked for quite a while, but he keeps coming because that's the kind of guy he is. And he basically wins by hitting her with a car and throwing her and making her drop down the elevator shaft. And then you have the climbing up thing, which is kind of a little bit like that sequence from The Lost World Jurassic Park, which I like, climbing up the car as it's falling down, although that's quicker. So, yeah, the quality of sequels, Die Hard at least stays in the ballpark until it goes off the cliff with the last one, and so I don't really feel the need to bring it up because it will, as I said, just hurt our side. But Die Hard 2, 3, and 4, 2 and 3 are definitely great sequels. 4, you can say, is a little weak, but it's still John McClane. He's not quite too old yet. Like, you don't feel like, oh, Bruce Willis, you're so old. Like, at this point, he still seems all right, and he has a personal stake in it. He's trying to save his daughter. I admit it's kind of, I get they were trying to go for a comedy thing by pairing him up with Justin Long. It's like, oh, look how funny it is, but I'm sure like most people, it's just like that would annoy anybody, not just John McClane. Justin Long would just annoy anybody. It doesn't matter who he's with, he would be super annoying. So it's like, yeah. But whatever. I mean, in a way, at least it gives John McClane something different to do. He has kind of like a weakling who only has one skill that he has to protect, so it kind of makes things a little tougher for John McClane because, yeah, like there's that part where in like the hydroelectric plant or whatever like that, and She beats up or shoots McClane, so then like he tries to like punch her, and she just grabs his arm and bends it behind his back. He's like, okay, I'll do what you want. It's like, oh, now McClane has to look after this little bitch. He can't do anything for himself. But again, you can say that that's a strength because it just shows it's one more thing that McClane has to deal with, and that he has to protect somebody and stuff. I don't know. I still think Die Hard 4 is quite good, even though it feels less Die Hard by this point. So quality of sequels, and I'll just go on my attack right now. To get away from Die Hard, I hate Lethal Weapon 3. I think it's garbage almost. Like, I don't know why people always jump to picking on 4. There's just nothing to remember about Lethal Weapon 3. Like, nothing. The bad guy is just some guy with a mustache who used to be a cop and now he's dirty. I don't know. They kill people in a construction site. The only thing I like about Lethal Weapon 3 is that Joe Pesci is in it again and he's quite funny. Everything else I think is lackluster. I don't think there's a single action scene that's memorable. I don't think there's any good, like, intense moments between characters. I hate the character that they introduced, the chick character. She's in 4, too. Who is she? Renee Russo?
Renee Russo.
I hate her. I hate her with everything I have. Like, the whole scene where he and her are, like, comparing scars is such saccharine bullshit. No, I despise her. I really think Lethal Weapon 3 is a garbage sequel that tears down a once great series. And that's just, like, from the heart. That's not
you're talking about Die Hard 5?
Die Hard 5 is also quite awful.
We've got 4 movies versus 5.
I realize that you can just counter anything I say with 5. Not to mention, there's plenty of people that actually think 3 is fine. Like I said, most people think 4 is a lot weaker than 3. I just can't see it. I can't see it. Like, 4 at least has the cool Chinese triad stuff going on in Jet Li. There's just nothing to like. I hate it.
Counterpoint Lethal Weapon side.
I don't.
That wasn't me debating. I realized I stepped away from debate there and just went on a tirade, but I can't help it. I really hate 3, and I
feel the same way about Justin Long, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like I've been paired up with a Lethal Weapon fan, is what I feel like.
No, man, it's just how good the series is. You lost
why?
before it
Because
started.
I hate 3?
This is all collusion. I want to state that right now. I think that there's a reason why like 5 people didn't show up tonight. I think there's a reason you guys paired me up with Cole. I think I was set
totally
to fail
carrying into 3 and saying unequivocally that Die Hard has the stronger sequels. What else can I do? Collusion. I'm sorry that I'm not performing up to your standards, Jay.
Well, I will agree that Die Hard 3 is superior to Lethal Weapon 3. I do enjoy that film more. Although I don't hate the Renee Russo character. I think she's a good addition. She's perfect, the perfect foil and the perfect girlfriend for Martin Riggs. He basically found a female version of himself. And then, they get married and have kids, and he completes his story arc from being psycho that wants to die.
It was way better with that hot South African piece of ass. That was way better. And they kill her off.
Well, she got killed, so he had to move on.
I know, just for drama. I know. Lethal Weapon 2 is my favorite of the Lethal Weapons. I like it, but I think that killing her off was just, it was excessive, and they just did it for shock value. But anyway.
So I'm going to have to go Lethal Weapon 2 versus Die Hard 2. I'm going to pick Lethal Weapon 2. Lethal Weapon 3, I'll go with Die Hard 3, but Lethal Weapon 4 is definitely better than the last 2 Die Hards put together. When you have Oliphant, Long, and then you have the command center with Kevin Smith, that whole scene was nothing but annoying. It wasn't funny. It was just there to be there. And 4 was.
Well, it was supposed to be funnier, and stupid. What's his name? Insisted they cut out all the jokes. Bruce Willis was Bruce Willis told them to cut out all the jokes. Like, there used to be jokes in the scene. It was supposed to be a funny scene. Oh, he was like, "Oh, we don't need all this."
I agree with him.
Well, let's move on and let's talk about the overall legacy and impact on the genre that both series have had, and let's debate which one had the greater impact on the action film genre. And I want to start with the Lethal Weapon team.
There was a movie called Loaded Weapon 1.
Oh yeah,
I was thinking about that movie.
Is that the Emilio Estevez thing?
Yeah. Sam Jackson. And even McClane makes an appearance in it in a cameo.
Bruce Willis.
But so there you go. Die Hard is relegated to a cameo in a parody of Lethal Weapon. Before, there was many Lethal Weapons. What was it? Loaded Weapon 1 came out around the same time as Lethal Weapon 2, or before it? It was really close.
Loaded Weapon 1 was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So wait.
It
So
would've
so what you're saying is because it inspired a parody, that is something that makes it stronger?
Isn't that more of an impact on pop culture?
Well, it's
It
one thing.
Die Hard inspired a
say-
million copycat films.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's one thing to inspire a weak ass parody that nobody even remembers, whereas
Oh, I
Die
remember
Hard
it.
inspired a bunch of
I did too.
legitimate action films that just tried to copy and be serious. So I think
Copycats aside, I definitely think Lethal Weapon had more of an impact on the buddy cop dynamic. Because as we mentioned, John McClane is the lone wolf asshole that nobody wants to hang out with. And at the beginning of Die Hard 3, he's suspended, divorced, and a complete alcoholic. He's hungover for most of the film. I mean, he's not even his fellow cops want anything to do with him. He's the only reason he's brought back into relevancy is because of Simon remembers him from fucking with his brother. So he figures he's going to use him as a tool to distract everybody. There again, no, a retread of the villains. So we have Gruber's brother. We have to bring back more Eurotrash mercenaries for another heist to pretend to be terrorists. Even though I agree that Die Hard 3 is superior to Lethal Weapon 3, the villains seem a little retread to me. I don't know. But I think Lethal Weapon had.
But isn't Lethal Weapon just a rip off of 48 Hours anyway?
Ooh.
No, it's not a rip off of Running Scared either.
Yeah, see, there you go. They didn't start the buddy cop genre.
They perfected it.
Okay.
Good rebuttal.
Okay.
I'm not doing my part, but his style is.
I mean, it's even got like bootleg McNulty. It's got Gary Busey in it.
Okay. Die Hard side, go ahead. Pose your argument for why Die Hard impact, overall legacy, and impact on the genre.
Okay, I'll just say it again. Under Siege 2, Sudden Death, The Rock, Passenger 57, Get Off My Plane, Harrison Ford,
Air
Force One.
Don't forget the masterpiece that almost was a Die Hard film, and that is Speed 2: Cruise Control.
Well, there was Speed 1, which people had used Now, I realize that one's stretching it a little, but still, it's in the ballpark. So, I mean, if you're going to talk about legacy and impact, I mean, I will give Lethal Weapon credit for knowing when to stop, because nobody wanted to see Lethal Weapon 2003 or whatever like that. But the fact was, just because of age and stuff like that, Die Hard had a bit more longevity built into it.
They've tabled that shit, by the way. They've talked about all that. It's because Mel Gibson's been batshit crazy for the past 20 years. Is the only reason they haven't done it. The only reason.
If we're talking about legacy...
Okay, don't sabotage my own argument here, Jay.
If we're talking about...
I'm trying to say that the fact that Die Hard kept going is actually a point in its favor, despite the fact that its last movie completely dropped the ball. But my point is, the only good thing I can say about 5, because 5 is awful and stuff like that, it got made because there was an audience that wanted to see it. Now, it completely bombed and disappointed that audience, but there was a demand for it, which suggests, that Die Hard, even in 2014 or whenever the hell that was, it still had the name still had enough oomph or whatever. It had enough weight that people wanted to see another Die Hard, whereas Lethal Weapon had kind of petered out by this point, which I don't want to blame too much on them, because I mean, in the very first Lethal Weapon, you have Danny Glover saying he's too old for this shit. So what's he supposed to be saying like 25 years later?
Well, aren't they
like in a nursing home? He's just like, "Here's your badge." She's like, "What are you talking about? I've been retired for 20 years."
But aren't they supposed to be doing another Lethal Weapon?
They're doing a TV series.
As of this, there isn't one. Although that's the only thing I got to watch, by the way, in preparation for this show, was I watched the first episode of the Lethal Weapon TV series, and it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. I wouldn't say it was good, but I was expecting it to be like awful, and it was at least okay. I'm not going to watch the rest of the show.
Is it regular Damon Wayans or Damon Wayans Jr.?
Damon Wayans, regular.
Okay.
Is it better than the Die Hard TV show? Oh, that's right, there isn't one.
How would you do that?
Measuring success.
There will be one day,
Probably will.
They've talked about it, I'm sure.
One thing Lethal
All
Weapon,
things will eventually be television
Look,
shows. We know this.
That's
Maybe-
for lead. Go ahead.
the one thing Lethal Weapon did more successfully than Die Hard is it had a continuing storyline that I thought wrapped up very nicely in part 4, even though it was a weak film, where you had the whole family together. Riggs is now a dad. He's married. He's happy. Everything's well adjusted, and it's a complete package. It's a complete arc. You have the beginning where he's just wild-eyed, crazy guy, and in the end, he's a happy family man, like he always wanted to be. And he had all the same family members, all the same actors, and it just felt like a reunion every time you saw a new film. Even though 3 may be weaker than Die Hard 3, there was still some elements to it that really made you feel like you were hanging out with friends. That these are characters that you went through things with. Where McClane was, different every time, but he was the only. Of course, well, let's throw in his daughter that hates him. Oh, now let's throw in his son that hates him. Everybody hates this guy. I mean, there was no. You get the feeling that McClane is died of alcoholism by now, because nobody gives a shit about him because he's such an asshole. Yeah, he has one talent. He's lucky. Because he even says to Justin Long, "How do I get into this shit all the time? Because I'm the guy. I happen to be the guy that's there at the time. That's why it's me. Not because he wants it." Not because he's trained for it, just because it falls into his lap and he gets lucky.
At least he's self-aware.
Riggs' best skill is not killing himself every day of the week.
See, that was the first film, though. He moved on from that.
Murtaugh's best skill is not breaking a hip.
Murtaugh his birthday, he turns 50 in the first film, and he's thinking about retirement. That's why he's like, he gets put together with this 30-something Vietnam vet that's like way too energetic for him. That's why I'm too old for this shit. I just want to cruise the rest of my time.
Well, let's
Well, hold on real quick.
He certainly
Can I
does
say
rise
something
to
real
the
quick?
occasion, though.
Go ahead, Stingray.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Jay?
Maybe in 1993 when they made Loaded Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon was the more popular film, had a bigger legacy. But I think as time has gone on, I think Die Hard has kind of solidified itself as the more popular film. It's on TV all the time around this time of year. You guys know.
I mean, if you're an action movie person, Lethal Weapon ranks high, but I think Die Hard is like it's the altar you worship at.
Which one had the sequels that did the most damage to its legacy?
Here's the thing.
I'm not going to take responsibility for what greedy executives do to drag the shit through the mud.
It's
Trump card, always.
Throw that in the garbage.
Exactly. And it shits all over the rest of them.
It's Die Hard's fault.
So if we had done this show like 5 years ago, you'd totally be on like Die Hard wins.
Oh no, Die Hard 4 is bad enough to take up for it.
Oh, come on.
It's Die Hard's fault.
Can't actually believe that.
And then Nicole Smith's Skyscraper.
Oh yeah.
That got based on Die Hard, and that alone makes us win because Lethal Weapon did not give us an Anna Nicole Smith movie.
I've wanted to watch that.
And that's the legacy
I'm gonna have
of
to
Die
buy that.
Hard. Do you have
I've
the
never even heard of it
shitty
till
Anna
now.
Nicole Smith movies, or the one with what was it, Andrew Dice Clay as the villain?
Oh my
No
God.
Contest.
It sounds
Chip
awesome.
Lead or something. So those are the movies Die Hard also gave us. So Anna Nicole Smith and Andrew Dice Clay.
I still say the good outweighs the bad.
Okay, I'm gonna call the debate. The debate is over.
I'm grasping at straws.
I'm gonna.
We don't get
Yes, I can
closing
do.
statements.
Guys, I still have bad feelings about our Nightmare on Elm Street Friday the 13th show. I still like.
Red,
I still don't like Friday the 13th as much as I did before that show. So.
Okay. Let me. I'm gonna turn everything over to the audience. I want you guys to vote.
If you motherfuckers don't vote for Die Hard,
No, listen. I don't want you.
That's
guys,
intimidation.
I don't want you guys to vote on which series you think is the best. I want you guys to vote on which team did the best job in supporting their series. So, did you think the Die Hard team won the debate, or did you think the Lethal Weapon team won the debate? And I'll let you guys very briefly do a closing statement. Cole, go ahead, do a closing statement for Die Hard.
Well, let's see. Where to begin to end?
First of all, I'd like to thank our moderator, Pizzow,
Thank you.
for doing such a great job tonight.
Thank you.
He's really handsome, I've noticed tonight, too. I don't know.
It is.
Something he's doing.
Resorting to cheap compliments. We know who won right there. They just gave up. Clear victory on that point right there.
I don't know why you're
feeling good, man.
talking to Pizza when it's not him deciding it.
Fizzell, that's
the
really got to
viewers.
sway you now, right? Apparently, the fact that I've acknowledged your good looks, apparently the only reason I would do such a thing is so out there is that I was just pandering to you. So
Exactly.
you can make of that what you will.
So we have the one guy who was accusing everybody of collusion, trying to intimidate the audience, and then kiss the ass of the host in order to secure a victory. You lose. We win.
I was
Thank
just
you.
making a completely normal observation that any person with eyes would make.
I stand by it. It's
Audience,
fake
please
news.
note we did not have to resort to that to
Well,
win.
Fizzell, I mean, I guess you know what these guys think of you.
Right before the closing statements is when it's said too.
But Die Hard
Just like John
is.
McClane.
But Die Hard is on the Mount Rushmore of action movies. It's on the Mount Rushmore of cop movies. It is the movie that brought the action movie, which was a pumped up, adrenaline-filled, steroids-ridden ride of madness in the 80s. Die Hard really laid the template for what the action movie would evolve into going into the 90s, where you would have more everyman characters as opposed to the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers. And sometimes a more cerebral plot with villains that have better and more interesting and developed motivations and plans and such than just guys that are out for revenge or out to take over the world or blah, blah, blah. Now, you could say, yes, on the surface, it's just about money. But the fact is, once you get into it, it's just about money, but it's done in a very clever and interesting and different sort of way, something that certainly hadn't been seen before. And as we've said ad nauseum and repeated over and over again, Die Hard was such a success at this template that, tons of other action movies would just follow in its footsteps. Some really just very blatantly ripping it off because they realized what a great formula it was. And some of them are even great films in their own right, although none can really stand up to the original Die Hard, and most of that is because of the character John McClane, who, it's been pointed out many times, is an asshole, but a certainly very entertaining asshole. Just because you wouldn't get along with somebody in real life doesn't mean you wouldn't enjoy seeing their antics. I mean, one of my
stunted man-child.
One of my favorite characters in comics is Rorschach from Watchmen. But I think he's amazing. If he was in real life, I think he was horrible and needed to be stopped. But I loved reading about him and later even seeing him in the Zack Snyder movie that some people went down, but I think was quite good. So I just mean, just how, well you might get along with a character doesn't really mean anything, as long as they're entertaining to see on screen. And I mean, yeah, if it's a hateful asshole that you just can't get behind, you can't root for, yeah, that sucks. But John McClane is no such asshole. He's an asshole that you can get behind and root for, and he's great at it, and he's been doing it for decades now, and yes, he's slowed down at the end, and there's nothing we can say about that, although that's more, as we said, greedy execs and short-sightedness and all that. But the fact remains that Die Hard is a pop culture icon. John McClane, Hans Gruber remains a memorable villain and all that, right? There's plenty of people like myself that will even think of the third one not first, but very quickly because it's so good. And usually by the time you get to 3 in sequels, you're already reaching shitty territory, but 3 is very strong. Samuel Jackson's really memorable. So, yeah, I don't know what to say except that Lethal Weapon is awesome for what it does. And it's great in that it really did probably perfect the buddy cop genre. Actually, I do agree with that. But if you come down to which I prefer, I think that Die Hard trumps any buddy cop. Buddy cops are fun and all, but I think that Die Hard is on another level, really, and it does it well for several movies. It has great action sequences, great characters. It doesn't rely on repeating stuff and just hitting you over the head with familiarity. It took some risks in later sequels that didn't pan out, although I do admire the risks they made in Die Hard 4. As I said, Timothy Olyphant's kind of an annoying villain and stuff, but I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to show John McClane more out of his element and facing a threat he'd never faced before. It's not great. It's certainly not on the level of the other films, but it's definitely really cool.
Okay.
So, yeah,
okay.
Die Hard.
I gave Cole an extra couple of minutes there because he did compliment me. Team Lethal Weapon. Go ahead.
You have 30 seconds.
Give your closing statement.
We've already won this debate. There's no need for a closing statement.
Here's the
They've
thing.
already folded.
You see the balls on this guy, guys. Come on.
And besides,
Come on.
Die Hard 3 is a remake of the first Die Hard. Let's take it out of the building, put it in New York, and replace Powell with Zeus. You got the same
That's a
stealing
bit
shit.
of a reach.
And he's
We
even
got
related to
time
the villain in the first movie.
bombs.
Well, Die Hard 3 and 4 are buddy movies.
That's more misdirection.
Die Hard 3 and 4. Die Hard 3 and 4.
That was
became-
misdirection from the fact that you lost.
Oh, you can say it.
Okay,
you can keep saying
for
it.
folks out there who are listening to my voice, just remember Die Hard 5. Just remember the ending of Lethal Weapon 4. Everyone was smiling in the family. Now remember Die Hard 5, where Bruce Willis is a superhero jumping to Chernobyl, which he's fine because I guess there's no radiation in Chernobyl
I
anymore.
honestly can't remember. I did see the movie. but I
And
can't
helicopter-
remember. I purged it from my brain.
Helicopter falling on him and his son 2 feet away. And he has about scratches enough to fit one Band-Aid. And he
All right,
walks
L.
away
Ron Hubbard. Come on, man. Let's go.
with his asshole son. He's a jerk off.
Okay.
And Die Hard 5 is where it ended.
I feel like
Remember Die Hard
TSF
5.
has let me down tonight. I feel like there's been all sorts of collusions against us tonight. I'm really, I got to say, I'm overwhelmed. I'm very
You better at
disappointed.
least still
in
believe
you
I'm on
guys.
your side.
The votes are rolling in. The votes are rolling in. While the votes continue to roll in, those were the closing statements. You guys watching, let us know who won. Was it Team Die Hard? Was it Team Lethal Weapon? The votes are rolling in. While the votes continue to roll in, let's take a walk on the wild side and see what Jay the Stingray's got for us in tonight's Stingray Spotlight.
I'm almost too worked up, man. I don't even know if I want to give anybody the satisfaction of going into the spotlight tonight.
I knew you were making a
I'm done.
mistake.
No.
You made a mistake.
No.
No spotlight for you.
Oh, well, okay. Whoa.
No,
Whoa.
no.
Protesting the spotlight. Oh, my God. Whoa. All right, let's look here. Let's look here. Okay, let's see. I'm seeing a lot of Lethal Weapons. Let me try and get a count going here. I'm seeing a lot of Lethal Weapons. DJ Donnelly says Lethal Weapon 1. Stone Gaspin says Lethal Weapon 1. Movie Man 95 says if Cole showed his nipples, it would automatically make Team Die Hard win.
Well, you know, I tried to rely on the standard debate. I didn't want to have to pull out any secret weapons.
Let's see. Orc says Mike's racist. I think Orc's vote is with Die Hard, which that's not a shocker.
Sounds about right.
Let's see. Who else we got here? Josh O'Brien says he is Die Hard.
I'm sorry, but isn't Danny Glover? He's African American, right? And I said he was the best co-character. Yeah, so I don't get the racism part.
Well, it's orcs.
You're racist against John McClane, who's Irish.
Jerp Penn votes for hashtag BMovie Mike and hashtag Rambo Ref for life.
That's not the movies. That's those guys. I can't help it if I'm not your type. Maybe I should shave my head. that do it for you?
So
no,
far,
but apparently the nipple would.
John McClane is bald.
It's so tempting, but I will not stoop.
John McClane is bald, so he had to be bald for it to win.
Yeah, I should have been bald with a white.
I earned this shit. I went bald naturally. You're jealous.
It's close, but it's looking to me like Lethal Weapon may have won the debate tonight.
But then remember Die
could it
Hard
not?
5.
I'm shocked.
Only the third time I've
disappointed.
lost the debate. I'm starting to think this has nothing to do with.
I feel like I let Die Hard down tonight,
Yeah,
and for that I'm really sorry.
I fought hard for Die Hard. Apparently, you guys like Joe Pesci more than.
Oh, okay. Orc is asking for a Twitter poll.
Okay.
All right.
We're going for the recount already. I see how it is.
Well, Twitter polls, we can vote.
If any of these people are from Florida, their vote is all automatically discounted.
I'm going to see those chads.
No Floridians. You can't be trusted in elections.
Phil Gassman said, "No, I did fine. Your team just didn't win." See, that's even worse.
Wow, ouch.
Wow. Yeah, Manny, we've got it. Manny Gatillo says Lethal Weapon all day.
I guess you guys are easily swayed by absolute statements instead of actual arguments and debate and facts.
Manny Gatillo says Lethal Weapon all day while eating a bowl of Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes, and Captain Crunch combo.
Whoa.
All right.
That sounds like a good day, I guess.
I can't even imagine what that would taste like.
That's
Thank you, sir, for the vote.
now that I think that's a lethal weapon in and of itself. Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes, and Captain Crunch all together. That's a lethal weapon in and of itself. Oh my God! Orc just said Jay is the Buffalo Bills of the TSF debates.
Even I get that reference.
That's cold, man.
Cold. Orc is a Patriots fan, so yeah, he would say that.
Oh man, that was cold. But I mean, I'm ready to call it. I'm ready. You know what? I have to give it to the Lethal Weapon team because I walked into this debate tonight and I was a complete, completely objective, thinking that the Lethal Weapon side would have a difficult time because Die Hard is Die Hard. And every action movie since Die Hard has been called Die Hard on this or Die Hard on that or Die Hard on this. So I have to, my hat's off to both teams. You guys both did a fantastic job. I am surprised, but I think that is due to the fact that now, Mike, were you on the debate team in high school?
I did get an A in political science, though.
Okay, well, you all right. I mean, it shows.
Can I demand a recount or?
I'll look. Let's look out here. Manny Gatillo hitting below the belt. He says no. Jay is more of the Cleveland Browns of the debate.
Yes, that actually does kind of hurt.
Now that is cold, man.
Oh,
that is cold. I don't. Orc is saying it's all rigged. I don't know.
I don't know. Jay, I guess we did so poorly that we made everybody realize this. I thought Die Hard was a good series. It was popular and people liked it. But
I thought it was going to be easy.
I think honestly,
I hope you guys are proud of yourselves. You guys just blew Die Hard out of the water somehow. With your amazing debating skills of pointing out over and over again how much the fifth one sucks.
I think what hurt.
Brilliant strategy.
I think what hurt Die Hard 5 was. I think what hurt Die Hard was Die Hard 4 and 5.
I stand by Die Hard 4. I think it's a good movie.
I think that's what hurt him.
So do I.
Die Hard 3.
No. Let me clarify. A fun movie to watch, like, not a great movie or anything, but fun one-off.
I actually really like Die Hard 4, but I can't say that for this debate, so we would win. So why am I asking?
Well, they've already won. You've already won. So.
Exactly. So now I don't lie anymore.
Josh O'Brien says, "Great debate and all around a great show, guys. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it."
Well, at least that feels like some credit given to our side. Well, thank you.
I have all the Lethal Weapons on Blu-ray, but I'm going to go home tonight and throw them in the garbage.
As I said.
So
just go home and watch some films. That's
Manny Gatillo and Movie Man 95 are both claiming that they're thinking that the Russians were somehow involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Involved in everything.
They ruined the fifth movie, and now they ruined this debate.
Vladimir Putin, as Steven Seagal calls him.
I just like to say, I'm not afraid of you, Putin. Come at me. I'm not stupid enough to drink your tea.
Whoa, hold on. That's not.
If Seagal's over there, you should be afraid.
I do think it's close. Let me see if anybody tweeted at us on Twitter. Maybe they tweeted some votes at us. Nope, nobody tweeted at us at all.
I tweeted some votes at you.
Yeah, Jay the Stingray tweeted the meme. It's not Christmas till I see Hans Gruber fall off.
Trying to pad the voting, are you? Gee. Talk about a recount.
Both teams did good, and shout out to Jack for some fun facts. As European, I agree. Jack Craven was in the chat tonight, throwing out some really nice little trivia tidbits about both films. We appreciate that. But yeah, fun show. These debates are always fun. It's all good.
It's one way to describe it.
One thing I would have liked to have seen would have been the ultimate buddy cop film. It would have been like Tango and Cash, but it would have been Riggs and McClane. That would have been interesting to me to see how those two guys. I think they would have actually gotten along. I think that would have been an interesting flick.
That would have been interesting.
Riggs would have had to save him, but that's okay.
You'd have to carry him.
Yeah, he could carry the dead weight.
I'll say this: it was very close. I just kind of counted, just looking through here. It did seem like there were more votes for Lethal Weapon, but it was very, very close. So I mean, I will say it was a very, very close contest. I think you guys both did an excellent job with the debate. I appreciate you guys, the hard work that you put into this debate. It was fantastic. And believe it or not, guys, nobody knew what team they were going to be on before, literally just minutes before the show started. Okay, so they had very little prep time. I like to keep everybody on their toes. Nobody knew what the categories were going to be. So just, that's just how we work around here. So, and let's see.
Yeah, Jay, what do you got to say about that? How can we cheat when we didn't even know what the hell we were going to be doing?
I think I may have to announce my retirement from the Sausage Factory. It's I regretfully, I've decided to spend more time with my family. And I don't.
Stingray's lost faith in humanity.
In every bit of humanity.
But everybody was saying that it was a great show tonight, so it truly was. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. It was a great, lively chat, as always. Want to thank everybody here who joined me. Orc, of course, who was on for a little while. Hopefully he will be returning very, very soon. I was kind of joking and kind of not about maybe doing a fundraiser for Orc's PC. If you guys watching would be interested in maybe doing that, joining us for something like that, let us know what movies you'd like to see us do, like a marathon for, or what have you, so that we can help work out a little bit with his PC situation.
We might as well watch the winning films. We could watch all 4 of the Lethal Weapons and point out why they're superior as we watch them.
You just want to bask in your victory as long as you can, don't you?
Give you a wreath of roses and a big glass of milk.
Well, Jerpian is a little upset that we didn't get a Stingray spotlight tonight. Are you sure you don't want to go?
I can't do it tonight, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay. His heart's just not in it. His heart's not in it. That was a crushing defeat for Stingray. I don't know.
It really was. It really was.
But next week, guys, is going to be a super fun show. It's going to be our Christmas show. We're going to be watching and discussing Silent Night, Deadly Night live. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I hope you guys all tune in and watch the film with us and talk about it, and we'll discuss our holiday plans and what have you. Okay, Mike, any wise words for us? We've got some requests for some wise words.
Oh, damn. I was going to rub it in a little bit, but I think I've done that enough. Just having fun. Just remember, everybody has an opinion, and your opinion is right to you. Their opinion is right to them. It's always fun to have these debates, but when it comes down to it, it's all good. We could all be that way. I was going to say, come prepared or go home disappointed. That was my actual wise words, but I was trying to be cool.
Oh, man. Well, I think what honestly, when you're talking about both of these movies and both of their series, I mean, the viewer ultimately wins and the fans ultimately win, with the exception of Die Hard 5. That was a loss for everybody. The series, both of the series are iponic and
Okay, I
very
love
difficult
I
task.
love Die Hard 5 now. It helped us win, so I love Die Hard 5 now.
I think it may have.
I love
think
it. I gotta watch it every Christmas.
But you guys have a great week. I will see you guys next Thursday live on the Sausage Factory YouTube channel as we watch and discuss Silent Night, Deadly Night for our Christmas episode. You guys have a great week. Again, big thanks to my panel who joined me, and have a great week. Peace.
Later.
Good night.